All right, shalom. What's up, everybody? Hopefully you guys are doing all right. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer. And it's in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect this message. Amen. Thank you, everybody, for being on with us. We're going to continue with our series, Having Been Led as We Believe. I'm trying to get the podcast set up. We won't have IG and Facebook set up this rising. Nevertheless, we're thankful and grateful to have everybody on with us. And this is part 23, right? And today we're going to talk about doctrine. Today we're going to talk about doctrine. So I'm excited about that. To be able to have conversation concerning doctrine, because a lot of people, when we talk about belief system, we got to talk about doctrine, and doctrine is one of those words that we use incorrectly, which causes us to be at a disadvantage when it's time to speak on our belief system, because a lot of people, a lot of times we don't really comprehend what these words are that we're using, right? So when we don't know proper etymology, we're basically listening to somebody tell us some stuff that could be and not could be is most oftentimes way off. So when we don't know about doctrine, when we don't know what doctrine is, when we can't tell you what doctrine is, we get in a bad place concerning what doctrine is supposed to be. So today we're going to talk about doctrine in this series, Having Been Led as We Believe. And prayerfully you'll be able to get some things out of this that'll help. A lot of people who are on are moderators because we have a lot of people who come on with mess, and we're not quite back at our usual number since this is our third page. So we try to make sure that this is an environment that everybody can be on, all the platforms that we're on, to where people can feel comfortable and people can voice their disagreements or whatever. Just be respectful. So the amount of moderators shouldn't matter, as long as we're going to all be we're all going to be respectful. Nevertheless, once again, we give all praise to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. We give all praise to Him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. The tincture of the month is I Am Immune. And I'll just go ahead and put this out here as well. There's a brother of ours who's asked for some help, if you're willing to. If you do, wherever you go on Linktree or however you would make a donation to it, you just need to make sure you put in the comment section what your donation is for. There is a brother who, because of COVID and things of that nature, he has two children that he takes care of, and he is having a rough time as far as being able to have any kind of finances come in. We sent him already, out of what we have, we sent him we sent him basically something for food. But if it's on your heart to give anything as far as to help him to be able to take care of his family and food, and also if you would like to help us out, we're trying to send him some other stuff as far as tinctures. So if you'd like to be able to help him with that, to get over what he's going through, feel free. And like I said, just let us know if you do send something. Make sure that you notate what it's for, so that we know what to send it for and what to use it for. It doesn't get accidentally used for something else. All right, but thank you for being on. We appreciate you on all the platforms. Shalom Cole, shalom Chef, shalom Cherise, shalom Austral, Barbara, Brother Thomas, Lil Red Diamond, Breezy Mama, Dark World, I think Ransom, if I didn't say so, Minister Tamara. Shalom Beverly, how you doing? Sister Deborah, Sister Tracy, Jess Banks, Night Wolf, hey, how you doing? So today we're going to talk about something, and we're going to talk about doctrine. Once again, we're going to talk about doctrine, and doctrine is extremely important to talk about. And we're going to talk about having been led as we believe. We got to take care of doctrine. So once again, we give all honor to everybody on here, to the Most High. For my wife, you can follow her on TikTok, YouTube, and her website is Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. You can check out, and of course, check out each other, support each other, take care of each other. We're excited about each and every one of you, and excited about an opportunity again to talk to you all. And today we're going to talk about doctrine. Now, why is doctrine important? Some people only think of doctrine because, once again, people don't give you proper etymology, and we believe that we're supposed to tell you, having been led as we believe, without getting into law. And if you have rights, you should always know law, because law protects your rights. Law does not give you rights. Law protects your rights. And if you go in somewhere talking about all the rights that you have or whatever, the judge and everybody already knows that you're done. The lawyer already knows that you're done, because your rights are not what's on trial. Right? Matter of fact, if you know how law works and you know what your straw man is, you know that you're never on trial. You know it's actually your straw man, your birth certificate. So, the straw man doesn't have rights. You have rights, and you have laws to protect your rights, and that's always very important. Thank you, Brother Dennis. Thanks for being on. You didn't know she was on YouTube? Yeah, she's on YouTube as well. YouTube, TikTok, and she's got her website and stuff up. My son's on YouTube too. Everybody, my youngest, trying to follow in Daddy's footsteps. What we do is we do as a family. She has her live sessions and things of that nature as well. Things are a little off right now just because of traveling that we're doing, but nevertheless, you can always check in with her, or those who have the number. I guess I got some in my beard. But yeah, so we're thankful, grateful. Once again, this is our sister Beverly on here, Bev's Body Butter. So if you want to be a support to someone in the community, please do so. You're gonna have to buy some more for her in a little bit. Nevertheless, though, today we're talking about, and shalom, Sister Helen, how you doing? Today we're going to talk about, and Sister Shante, hello, was it Beth Wiles, how you doing? We're talking about doctrine. The reason we're going to talk about doctrine is because a lot of people have been lied to, and they think that doctrine is only if you go to a church. That's as far as people think about doctrine. Or a religious organization, you hear doctrine, and the first thing people do is we go, oh, doctrine, okay, so you're talking about but religiosity, even though the word religion is used wrong all the time. People will make that assumption. Oh, you're talking about doctrine. No. Doctrine is much deeper and bigger than that. And that's why we speak on different things, not just inside whatever your canonical viewpoint is, whether it's 66 books, whether it's 80 books. Some people go up to 200, 300 books, whatever it is. We always have to know what you're talking about, because we're dealing with doctrine. If you're talking about law, you're dealing with doctrine. Okay, so let me give you a couple of examples real quick of doctrine. I'm not going to hold it up on the screen the whole time like I did the other day when we were talking about, I forget what I had on the screen the other day. I think we were talking about sacred. But I want to show you some definitions real quick of doctrine. A lot of people don't know this stuff, and so it becomes a little difficult. And I apologize if there's some noise or whatever. I do have the car running, so if you're hearing some noise, some extra noise, I do apologize for that. But we're doing what we got to do to make sure that we get on live today. So allow me to show you what doctrine is. I'm going to show you a few different ways that you can look at doctrine. You ready? Okay. So first, let's look up if we were to just Google the definition of doctrine, it would tell us that it is a belief or set of beliefs held or taught by a church. Of course, they use the word church there, but that's important too, because there should be separation of what church and state. So there should be a separation of beliefs, being in the system, but not of it. You said it's clear? Okay, thanks, Sister Alstrom. Right, so there's a belief system. We should be in the system, but not of it. Oh, thank you, Sister Sonia. Appreciate you too, right? So it's a belief or set of beliefs held or taught by a church, really is an organization, right? Or they say church because they're talking about belief, but that's what the Google definition is, all right? So a belief or set of beliefs held and taught by a church, political party, or other group. the thing they use here as an example, by the way, is the doctrine of predestination, which, is a doctrine that says that you really don't have any choice in the matter of what you do. So that's a doctrine, right? But also here it has another one on the bottom, a stated principle of government policy, mainly in foreign or military affairs. Yeah, exactly. Political institutions, right? Political party, right? So that's what a doctrine is. It's a belief or a set of beliefs held and also taught. It's held and taught. So anything that's held, which means that it's, that basically means you keep it, you say that I'm not going to let go of this, right? I live by this. So anything that's held or taught by a church, political party, or other group, any other group. So any group out here who holds on to something and believes in it and teaches it, right? They have what's called a doctrine. Right now, also too, if you look down here, here's an example they give where they talk about the Monroe Doctrine right here. When it says the Monroe Doctrine, that's a doctrine by President Monroe of those of you who consider yourself still to be, in the system of the Corporation of America or even the United States of America, right? You got to know some doctrine, right? When you're in the system but not of it. This doctrine right here basically says that anything that's considered to be foreign, right? If you go and look up the Monroe Doctrine, anything that's considered to be a foreign threat is basically a threat, or anybody who's saying anything that supports anything foreign to the United States or the United States of America back then it would have been what? It would have been considered to be, something the military needs to be ready to go against. That means if you, right, or an enemy, because remember, it's not just foreign, but any enemy, foreign and domestic. So if you say something, if you live by something that is foreign to the United States, then they consider you to be an enemy. Remember, we said the other day, you got to learn your enemy. Your enemy's learning you, and they're doing things, what they believe to them is sacred because it's doctrine. You see how all this stuff is going together? Sovereignty, no. Sovereignty, once again, is not, the person who is sovereign is a person who has to be protected by the United States of America. Now, if the person who is sovereign does something that, steps out of the private and goes into the public, then that's a threat, right? Now, technically, though, there will still be people who will come against you as far as your belief system and stuff and try to tell you why it's wrong to become sovereign, because becoming sovereign, in a sense, is going to say that I'm no longer going to be a slave, right? Which means that you are a problem. But as long as you go into sovereignty and you're not doing this whole thing, like a lot of people who are out here saying we're going to destroy America, well, you're an enemy, and you'll be dealt with as such. If you're going to march and say, that you want to get rid of police officers, you're an enemy. And so why would they not consider you an enemy and say we need to do some stuff to make sure that we're defending ourselves against you, right? Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah, I think we've had some of those conversations offline. Yeah, so same stuff, right? So that's what a doctrine is. Once again, doctrine is a belief or a set of beliefs held and taught by a church, and that's the word they use here, political party or other group. I'm sorry, Beth said I like how one of the similar words is dogma or dogmatic to me, which means no changing / open mind. Well, that depends on what somebody's set of beliefs are, So people will think about dogmatic, but dogmatic, when it comes to your doctrine, you can be dogmatic concerning your doctrine. But what if your doctrine says, love others as you love yourself, right? So it depends, right? We use a lot of terms, and we've been taught to use a lot of terms only in one basket. I see what you're saying, and that therefore can be problematic. If somebody's dogmatic and their belief system, for example, is Mormonism, where Joseph Smith says, hey, everybody who's everybody who didn't fight for Mormon Jesus or fight for the devil is black or dark skinned. That's how they become black or dark skinned, so they're cowards. That's a doctrine. And if you are dogmatic with that belief, we can see some problems happen, right? If somebody has a belief system that says that just because somebody is gay or lesbian or trans or whatever, just because they're that, it means that we should never show them any love and we should hate them, right? That's dogmatic. I can believe that that's not the path somebody should take, nor is that their calling for their life. And I can still believe that and not say, well, just because you're this, when I find you outside, I'm going to beat you to death. Right? There's a difference between the two. So it depends on what your doctrine is, and it depends on if, by the use of the way we're using dogmatic right now, depends on how dogmatic somebody is. Right? Namaste, Jay. Namaste, Fabrice. How you doing? Right. So when you're talking about doctrine, once again, it's a belief or set of beliefs. Now here, this is the Google definition, right? Which is usually coming from Oxford, right? Matter of fact, Oxford Languages. There you go. So belief or set of beliefs held and taught by a church, political party, or other group. And here it tells us it's a stated principle of government policy, mainly in foreign or military affairs. So people think of doctrine. A lot of people get messed up. Yeah, science can be dogmatic, right? Et cetera, et cetera. Somebody who's pro-life, who's pro-choice, whatever, they can be very dogmatic. And that's why a lot of people don't have conversations. We just have arguments that get to a place where nothing gets done concerning these conversations because everybody's very dogmatic. Not everybody, but the people that we see that are put up and presented, they're usually very dogmatic, right? So, but this is doctrine. Anybody who holds a belief or set of beliefs and teaches it, right? That's it. If you have a belief, a set of beliefs, and you hold on to it or you teach it, any church, any political party, any group you're looking at their doctrine. Hey, Grand Rising, Earth Shalom, how you doing? All right, so here's another definition. Now let's go into Black's Law definition, which is what is happening when you go to court or when you're dealing with a lot of stuff as far as UCC or whatever. These are the meanings of the words they're talking about now. So now this is what they teach you as far as, hey, Google it, look at it or whatever. So this is a basic thing that we already see. Doctrine's a little different than what we think. Now let's look at Black's Law Dictionary of what doctrine is. All right. Now, when we look at Black's Law Dictionary, it says that it is a rule, principle, theory, or tenet of the law. It is what? Is a rule. So this is when we're talking about it as a law. That's why we study law. We got to understand kingdom law, marital law, natural law, laws of attraction law, first mention law of equity, common law, et cetera, right? We live by laws. Laws don't give rights. Laws protect rights. So how do you protect your rights? Even in a legal situation, all the stuff we've been talking about, it goes together, right? It is a rule, principle, theory, or tenet of the law, as the doctrine of merger, the doctrine of relation, etc. Doctrinal interpretation, right? It's important too. So now what is interpretation? Remember I told you guys there's only one interpretation, but there are many applications, and a lot of people, whenever they hear me say that, they go, oh no, you don't know what you're talking about. There's a lot of interpretations. What if you interpret it in this language or how I want to interpret? No. There's only one interpretation. How do we know this? Because it tells us here, see interpretation, right? Grand Rising Dennis, how you doing? See interpretation. So I didn't want to leave you hanging there. Let's see what interpretation is. You see all the stuff we've been talking about, right? For a long time, not just in this series. This is part 23 of this series, but all the stuff we've been talking about for a while. See how this goes together. Now, what is interpretation? According to Black's Law Dictionary, it says it's the art or process of discovering and expounding the intended signification of the language used, i.e. a statute, will, contract, or any other written document that is the meaning which the author designed it to convey to others. Did y'all catch that? And hey, Mr. Fax, I'm focusing on something else right now. Maybe I can come back to it. But simply put, any variant that's out there, whatever, just make sure that you take care of your health and keep your immune system up. Right? Basically, bare minimum. There's going to be so many variants, like there's so many people that get shot and they say their names or whatever. After a while, like you have to kind of just have a culture, keep yourself healthy, make sure that you're out there, make sure you're supporting as much as you can, and whomever you're around, you take care of it. But look, the art, what is interpretation? Once again, this is why we say there's only one interpretation. This is why the Bible or whatever canon you're talking about, when people say, I want to interpret this way, I want to interpret that way, you can't sit there and say, hey, I'm going to take everybody's piece of this culture, piece of that culture, piece of this, piece of this, piece of this, and then say that it's okay to live by all. There's only one interpretation. Just because you want to do something different with what somebody else did doesn't mean you have proper interpretation, because interpretation is the art or process, right? By the way, TION means it's a noun. Right, that's why it's a person, place, or thing. So that's why it's an art or process, Whenever you put a T-I-O-N on a word, it makes it a noun. Y'all see how we've been talking about this stuff for years now. We've been talking about this, but especially, dealing with this, you got to know what a word is telling you. A lot of us are just saying random stuff or thinking that we're getting this or whatever, right? But interpretation is the art or process of discovering and expounding the intended signification, right? What makes it significant, this person, place, or thing you're talking about, what makes it significant of the language. Now, remember, we talked about language goes hand in hand with culture. Used, I-U-A, statute, right? What do we talk about all the time? Statutes, will. What is the will of the Most High? Will you do this? Will you do that? It's not will you, do you want to do it? Will you do it, right? The will, contract, covenant, all these things, or any other written document, anything written down, like the Torah or the Bible that we're talking about discussing. When people want to have a discussion about this, you can't, that is the meaning which the author designed it to convey to others. That means who wrote it is important. The people who wrote it is important. When people say it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. That's not what I take it. That might have been what they wrote, but that's not how I take it. I take it to mean, then you're not giving interpretation. You're lying on the author, because the author didn't intend that use of language. That's not so therefore it's not significant. Did you get that? So you were giving insignificant. Did you catch that? You were giving insignificant interpretation. You were telling people things that are insignificant, because if the author, right, if you're trying to expound upon something but won't be honest about what the author intended with the language they use, then it is insignificant, because it's not based off of what? The statute or their will or the contract that they're in, that they're saying, that they're stating, or what they wrote down, what they documented. If you're not coming from what they said, then it means that the author that's not what they designed to convey to others. And this right here, if you want to take a quick screenshot, this is some case study in different cases. If you want to look up some different things to get a deeper conversation on it, right? But this is what we're talking about. So I'm going to go through all these again real quick. Shalom, Digga Khan, how you doing? Right? So it's important. Culture is always going to be important. That's why we keep talking about culture. And people keep saying, why are you talking about culture so much? Why are you always talking about culture? Why are you always talking about law? Why are you always talking about interpretation? Well, because you can't have a conversation about anything, right, without understanding the doctrine, which is the belief or set of beliefs held by anybody, a church, political party, any other group. And you can't go deep into that until you comprehend, right, that doctrine, even on a legal term, is a rule, principle, theory, or tenet of the law, and it's basically needs doctrinal interpretation. And we can't talk about interpretation of a doctrine if you won't be honest about the fact that you have to go through the art or the process of discovering. You have to know how to discover and expound the intended signification of the language, the statutes, the will, the contract, or any written document, to make sure that what the author designed to convey to others is what's being taught. Yes, we are the real Alpha or the real Hebrew or the real or actual Yashadil. Yes, I am. So, so we're having a tough time. Now get into what we're not. So now getting back into I guess we've been the whole time talking about interpretation, but that's why we're having a tough time with this. We're having a tough time speaking on issues. We're having a tough time having real honest conversation about any problems. Chauvinism, patriarchy, racism, feminism, all these buzzwords that are out here. Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, Republican, Democrat. Are you in an oligarchy? Are you in a republic? Are you in an oligarchical republic? Are you in a democratic republic? All these different things. We can't have conversation about it because nobody wants to do the research to make sure that the doctrine is correct. The doctrine is what was intended originally by the author. It has to be interpreted correctly, and the doctrine is what the person who wrote it and the people who wrote it, and if you believe in the Most High who wrote it through somebody else, whatever it is, you have to first identify who wrote it, who were they, what did they believe, where did they live, this who, what, where, why. I mean, who, what is it? Who, what, where, when, why, and how, right? Who wrote it? What did they write it for? Where did they wrote it? When did they write this? Why did they write this? And how even did they get to a place of writing it? That's part of the problem that we have. So that's why people don't want to talk about doctrine, because if we talk about, or people don't want to get into it because people are limited, thinking that doctrine just means, oh, that person believes that, that's it. No, doctrine is literally something that has to be interpreted correctly, or else it can't be considered to be doctrine. I'm sorry, you say you have a question. Is there a rule or doctrine that the ruling class abide by? There are many that they abide by. Sad part is that a lot of times it's actually similar, if not similar, it's the same thing that you and I should be abiding by. And there are certain things they don't abide by, simply because we don't comprehend certain things. You said you want to understand what was first Ma'at, so you're talking about the confessions of Ma'at. Well, the confessions of Ma'at if you're talking about what's written first, probably what's written first is the confessions of Ma'at, but many people followed what we now call biblical principles. We only look at the Bible as far as, once again, in 66 books, so we act like nobody historically has anything that backs up what the Torah, what the Bible says. But the reality is that a lot of people were living by those things and wrote out those things. The people of Canaan, before Israel got to Canaan, what we now call Israel, it was Canaan for Canaan. Canaan had people that believed in the same thing. Matter of fact, we forget that even the Bible says that people that believed in Baal. Now, what Baal has become, historically, even that's backed up when they found a bunch of documents in the 90s and stuff like that, in the 1990s, when they found a bunch of crazy stuff that was written out or whatever, where people had changed the religion, and so does the Bible. The Bible declares that people in Canaan, but there was a point where in China, Shangdi was the same thing as Elohim, Yahweh, which was the same thing as Baal, because Baal, they believed in Yahweh as being Baal, et cetera, et cetera. People have twisted stuff over time. But, even in Kemet, you'll find that there are fights that happen in the ruling class. Somebody talking about the ruling class. In the ruling class, they're having issues because a lot of the people don't believe in polytheism. They believe in monotheism. So that was a fight that went on too. And before it happened in Kemet, that happened in Kush, where people believed that they should become deities and deists. And so they started making men and women deists. And that was a fight. So, historically speaking, really, when you start looking at this, it all goes together. The story of mankind and the Bible have to match up. That's why I say, like, people take the spiritual and they make it so mystical that it's no longer practical. Right? A lot of people are so into mysticism. It's so mystical that it doesn't make sense. So people hear you talking about stuff and they're like, but that doesn't make sense. And your whole thing, not but a lot of people's whole thing that happens with that is, well, you don't get the mystical because you're not in the mystical. You're not in the spirit. But Yahshua used to be considered to speak with authority, and people believed in what he had to say because he would take what was so mystical and they had made so high-minded, and he would give a parable, or he would just simply talk to them and decipher through law. And he would say, this is how law works. This is how we see it in the kingdom. This is how we see it in heaven. And he would just speak on it, right? He would bring the thing that was so high up, that would seem to be so hard, that he brought it back down. Somebody said, what is Ma'at? We're talking about in Kemet, there's a goddess named Ma'at. Before she was a goddess, the word just simply meant righteousness. And the word Ma'at, there's something called the 42 confessions of Ma'at. Some people try to call it the 42 negative confessions of Ma'at. Nevertheless, those 42 confessions are things that when the people of Kemet, not all, but a lot of them, when they woke up, they would speak these 42 confessions of Ma'at, things that were supposed to lead them to righteousness. Then they would go through their day, and then at the end of the day, they would say those 42 confessions again, and they would try to hold themselves accountable to see how many of the confessions did they actually keep. And said, someone to do, okay. Law at the Supreme Court level. Well, yeah, even the Supreme Court, you got to understand, even they're boxed in. They're all public servants, and the Supreme Court's whole gig is to represent the United States of America. You got to understand, all the other people you call judges, if they're not in the Supreme Court, if you've gone before a judge before and you haven't been to the Supreme Court, that wasn't a judge of the Supreme. They're not considered to be part of the judicial branch. They just have a title called judge. Anything that's not in the Supreme Court is part of the executive branch. So you have to actually know what you're talking about even when you're going there. You're not going to a Supreme Court, so you're not talking about things like on the level of the United States of America, things that are going to be automatic in there. You're talking about something different. That's why they have a lot of people who are trained specifically to just deal with the Supreme Court. All right, there's a lot of people who do law, and they're really good at just Supreme Court stuff. They have to study. Some people study their whole lives just to see what the Supreme Court says. You said whatever the designer meant to convey. Yeah, exactly. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about doctrine and interpretation of doctrine. Ms. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce. I don't know if I'm probably not going to pronounce this correctly. Mizrachi. I'm not sure. Religious people can't be rational in conversation about religion because of emotional bias. Yeah, but once again, the word religion just means anybody that does something repetitively as a legion. So people who go for a run a lot, if you do something that takes away from their run, they get emotional. I mean, people who like coffee every morning, every rising, they'd say morning, but every rising. People who like coffee every day and they don't get their coffee, they might get emotional. And your emotions are tied to your beliefs are tied to your culture. So if you have a culture of something, then I get why somebody is emotional, especially if that person's been raised in that culture for years. If somebody, that's all that they know. If somebody all their life they've been this one thing, and then somebody says, hey, there might be a chink in your armor, a lot of people can't have critical thinking. Now, critical thinking is part of the process too. But before I can critique, right, because critical thinking is supposed to come before, dealing with the doctrine and stuff like that. But if I don't have the ability to think in a manner that allows me to critique something, even if it holds, like I critique my own walk every day. Paul taught us that we should crucify the flesh daily. So I critique my own walk every day. I critique who I say I am. If I say that I'm a great husband, then I got to evaluate my marriage. If I say that I provide for my family, I got to check and see from time to time, like, what situation are we in? If I say that the people who are with me and who are willing to listen to me will be taught something new, I got to evaluate what I teach. So, it depends. And a lot of people aren't able to do that. Everybody's religious. Once again, we use the terms different. It's like when we use the term doctrine. A lot of people go to the place of doctrine because doctrine gets a negative connotation. So we don't talk about the fact that anybody who holds any belief and anybody who, will defend that belief, teach that belief, etc., right? Anybody, any organization that does that, and they hold the same belief, that's doctrinal. And if it's doctrinal, by definition of religion, something that a legion of people do repetitively, that doctrine is religious. So if you uphold that the doctrine of the Republican Party is da-da-da-da-da, you are religiously Republican. If you uphold the doctrine of Democrats is da-da-da-da-da, you are literally religiously, I don't know which one I just said, Democrat, Republican, whatever, right? Whatever you uphold. That's why we even talked about a while ago, whoever teaches you is who you become, right? So a lot of people are out here talking about, I'm my own person. No, you hold doctrines. Right now, you might be trying to take pieces of people's doctrines, but once you put them together, fine, you have your own doctrine, but it's still based off of somebody else's doctrine. Problem is, though, you don't have a whole doctrine. So your doctrine is going to come with side effects, right? Like, even if somebody's in something I don't agree with, if you're Muslim or whatever, fine, I'm going to hold you accountable at least to your doctrine. You say you're Muslim or whatever, but I see you drinking. I've seen this before, brother drinking, smoking with a prayer rug in his head. Now, at the end of the day, he might have just been starting or whatever, but I let him know, like, bro, you disrespecting your doctrine. You say that's what you uphold. Like, you should probably make sure. He got mad at me and yelled at me or whatever. He had every right to. I didn't say anything vicious, but I said something like, yo, you're holding this thing. You're showing that this is your doctrine. Is everything all right with you? Because I know your doctrine. I know what you supposedly people who believe, address people. And, you're talking about, alam salaikum and all this stuff like that. Well, something isn't adding up. You say, hey, what is the difference between the Ethiopian Bible and the Western Bible? The Ethiopian Bible has a little better interpretation. It's closer to the original interpretation by far. But if you know the culture, then you'll still be able to make up for some of those things no matter which Bible you're reading. You said you've read all the laws of Ma'at and the Ten Commandments? Okay. Yeah, the Ten Commandments aren't the only thing either. There's 613. So... But either way, and really there's even more than the 613. Some people argue 670 something or whatever, 663 I've heard, as 690. So at the end of the day, anything decreed by the Most High is a statute, is a command. So, we live by law. Anything that nature goes through, whatever, it lives by a law, right? He said, so his rhetoric was better objectively. I'm not sure what you're talking about, light beam. I'm sorry. I'm talking about a bunch of different things. I'm trying to catch up with you guys. If you want to tell me more specifically so I can try and make sure I answer correctly. Obscura says, I do, but I am a logical person. God, or Elohim, said to believe in him with all my soul, heart, mind. All right, you doing Deuteronomy 6:4, you doing Mark 12:28, you 34, you doing Luke 9:6. You know, he said to believe with you in all your heart. That's all your passion and all your soul. That's really, when you break that down, that's your psychology, right? To psychologically do what he does. All your mind, right? All your mind is talking about your pneuma, even as to using the word spirit there. But it's because of the difference between your mind and your brain. But also with all your strength. But also to do it the way that he does it. And so he says, try every spirit by the spirit, you know, and have critical thinking. If he tells you to do it the way he says do it, and if it works, then you should follow it. If he says do it the way he does it and you don't do it, I'm sorry, and you do it the way he says do it and it doesn't work, then you should question it, right? This thing just moved on me. I'm sorry, this stuff is all out of order. I do know that. I apologize. I'm trying to catch these comments, but it's this thing is scrolling on me. Yeah, they are very similar. There's some things that aren't the same, obviously, but they are very similar when you talk about Ma'at and you talk about the Bible. Masterful Million says, what about when Elohim sent the apostles to the festival and came in secret? What about when he sent the apostles to the festival and came in secret? When he sent the apostles. I'm probably just not using, in my mind, I'm not using the same, hold on. I'm trying to catch up with you. I'm talking about John 7:10. Okay, well, yeah, what about it, I guess would be my question. I'm trying to look up the whole thing. John 7, Yeshua said unto them, my time is not yet come, but your time is always ready. The world cannot hate you, but me it hateth, because I testify that the works thereof evil. Go ye up unto this feast. I go not up yet unto this feast, for my time is not yet full come. When he had said these words unto them, he abode still in Galilee. But when his brethren were gone up, then went he also up to the feast, not openly, but as it were in secret. Then the Hebrews sought him at the feast and said, where is he? Okay, yeah, he went up there and they were looking to kill him, but it wasn't yet his time. Oh, okay, and then we get to the place of doctrine, I guess. John 7, verse 16, Yahshua answered and said unto them, answered them and said, my doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me. Yeah. Amen, yeah, he's the door. He's the door to the kingdom. Sure. I don't, you might have to tell me exactly what you meant. Oh, okay. Somebody's saying he's saying I was skipping them. Yeah. You can find the 613 laws in the Bible. Really, any law, anything that's in the Bible is considered, really, you got to comprehend anything that's being decreed is law. The whole Bible is nothing more than law and case study. It's a law and a case study of a people who are supposed to be connected to the Most High, and anybody that wants to be grafted in should be obedient to those things. That's basically what you're dealing with. So when you read your Bible, you're reading, you know, what's there. Now you need to make sure you're in tune with culture once again, because interpretation of doctrine is important. As we talked about earlier, interpretation literally means that you have to, it is a art or a process, right? It's the art and process of being able to take what the person who wrote it and say what they originally intended out of it. If not, then if you don't do that, then what you're getting out of it is insignificant. If it means that it doesn't hold significance, it means that it doesn't hold anything of value concerning what you're trying to interpret. And a lot of people are doing that with doctrine, right? So you say anything that's indoctrinated doesn't have to be proved. I mean, possibly you could look at it that way. It depends on, once again, whose culture you're coming from. And the culture of the kingdom of heaven, you know, 1 Peter chapter 3 Is it 1 Peter 2 or 1 Peter 3? I always mess it up. Is it 1 Peter 2:15, 1 Peter 3:15? One of those. It says that we have to, we should be able to have an answer for that which we, which we believe, or which we, or when somebody, not even our belief system, when somebody asks you something, you should have an answer for the things that you hope in, right? And hope is what leads to your faith, and faith is what leads to manifestation. So, once again, it's cultural. It depends on the culture. Some people say, like, that's the reason why a lot of people leave the church and stuff, because they'll go to church and stuff and they'll be like, yo, I got a question. And somebody says, why are you asking questions? Well, if you can't answer, and for the things that you say you hope in, then I'm going to look for somewhere I can get answers, right? If that's your whole thing, is to say that it doesn't need to be proven. You know, heck, for us to be stamped and for us to be sealed, Joshua had to come and die. You know, it depends on your culture. Hey, Chill Pill, how you doing, sir? Oh, so you skipped the question about holiness. What is your question about holiness means? Can you put it in the question mark box? You said holiness is the doctrine. What is yours? Okay, so holiness is a doctrine. If you're saying that holiness is a doctrine, all the stuff that comes with holiness, right? So depending. And by the way, there are different people who would argue what holiness is, right? That holiness is, when you're, well, I guess you're not talking about the holiness sect of religiosity. That's probably not what you're talking about. But you're saying holiness is the doctrine. Well, what does the word holy even mean? You put a W before that H. That's the first thing it means. The most important of all commandments is, Hear, O Israel, Yashva HaMashiach, or not Yashva, excuse me, Yahweh Elohim, Yahweh Elohim Aleph, right? He is one. Don't be double-minded. He is one, right? Don't do what the pagans do. He is one. So whatever his word says, and whatever the real interpretation, what he, as the author of it, the author and finisher of our faith, what he says, right? What he says we should do with it is, and what he says, what he declares is what we go by. That's what the doctrine is. That's what makes our doctrine holy, is that it would be one with the author, which is proper interpretation. Interpretation of what the author said, by definition, is holiness. If the author said do it this way, we do what the author said. Once we do what the author said, we're one with the author. By definition, we're holy. Now we become set apart also too when we're holy. Why? Because he's set apart from the world, right? We do things that are sacred and keep things that are sacred. Why? Because he does things that are sacred and keeps things that are sacred. So that's what holiness is. When you talk about holiness as a doctrine, so if you're going to talk about holiness as a doctrine, fine. Whose holiness? Who are you whole with? Who are you one with? You know, I don't understand, the argument piece of it or whatever. That's an argument in the spirit. I don't know why. It seems like we're kind of sort of pretty close to being on the same page. I don't understand what the issue is. Yeah, see, like I said, I'm going out of order because the stuff is popping up out of order. I can tell your questions are out of order. You said all doctrine comes with side effects? Nope. The only thing, so even these terms that you use when you talk about all doctrines come with side effects, the only thing that comes with side effects is something that's not whole. If you take a medicine, right, that's the reason why there's a difference between natural medicine and chemicalized medicine. If you take something that's natural, I don't know if I have anything in here. We have some herbs and stuff that I was picking up the other day. Nevertheless, like let's say, so these right here, this is whole. These are actual grown pecans, right? This is natural. Now there's medicines out there based off of pecans, but if somebody, when they give you the medicine, they'll only give you a piece of it, right? So when they give you a piece of it, I'm not talking about they broke a piece. I'm talking about they'll take the combination of items that are necessary to get you a pecan, and they'll only focus on one, because they can't own it. They can't sell it to you unless they give you only a piece of it, or they change it from its original state to a version. Just like if they write a document, right? Or if you write a book, the reason why there's so many versions of the Bible is not because people are led to think differently. They're writing different versions of the Bible because if you don't change 10% of what came before you, what you're saying you're rewriting something, you can't make money off it. You can't publish it. So people will take only a certain percentage of this and they'll sell it to you. Right. Matter of fact, they even use the term God, but they talk about how if somebody, by law, if God made it, then you can't say that you own it. You can sell it, but you can't say that you own it. You can't patent it. So you have to change something from its original intent in order to patent it and make money off of it. That's the culture that we're in. And so people are doing the same thing with doctrine. People in order to patent it, to say, I'm Holiness Church, I'm Baptist Church, I'm Methodist Church. What do? They take a piece of it. They take in the methodology. Methodist. Our methodology is better than yours. We're saying we witness what Jehovah wants it to be. Jehovah's Witness. Matter of fact, they weren't even called the Jehovah's Witnesses originally. They were called Russellites because Charles Taze Russell, he actually wrote this thing they still use today as Jehovah's Witnesses, the Insight to the Scriptures. And he used to teach, all you got to do is read the Insight to the Scriptures. It'll actually teach you better than the Bible itself. That's a part of it, right? So just like that, when you take a medicine that's not the holistic thing, right? If you take some copper, right, they give you a little bit of copper, but they change it up and you don't just drink out of copper itself, you won't have side effects from this. But if you take a pill, right, that has only pieces of it or whatever, then it comes with side effects. Why? Because anything that's not whole, it has a hole in its side, so to speak. So it has side effects. So the same thing is happening doctrinally with a lot of people because lack of interpretation is there. Therefore, you're not getting the holistic picture of what was originally given. You're getting just a piece of it. And therefore, when you get a piece of it, you have side effects. So doctrines that come with side effects are doctrines that are leaky because they don't use the whole interpretation of the doctrine. Remember, that's why it's important. That's why we started off with what is the definition by, if you were to go off an Oxford definition of doctrine, what is the Black's Law Dictionary of doctrine, and then after that we went even to what does interpretation mean, because Black's Law Dictionary says see interpretation to comprehend that you can't talk about doctrine unless you interpret it correct. That's what we're in. You know, a lot of us, not saying you specifically, but just saying a lot of us are not in position. You say how many books are missing out of the Bible? I mean, it depends on what your Bible looks like. My Bible probably, what I consider to be Torah or canon, probably has like over 100 books or so. Some people say they go up to 200, 300. I don't necessarily get down with all those things, but I would say, there's definitely quite a few. Bare minimum. The Apocrypha is something bare minimum. And even once again, remember the word Torah or Torah, guide. It doesn't just mean... a lot of people think the Torah means Old Testament, or they think Torah means the first 5 books of Pentateuch or the Pentateuch, which it doesn't. The word Torah means the guide. So anything that is the word of Yah. Now it has to be in the proper interpretation, in the proper culture. That's how you tell these things. And a lot of us are going outside of the interpretation. But if anything that's within the right culture, and it's talking about the same stuff. Flavius Josephus talks about things that you should know to make sure that you confirm your Bible, and that goes past Revelation, right? Oluwata Equiano talks about being a slave who read the Bible for the first time, was captured when he was real young, bought his freedom when he was 20, and then finally when he was a little older, went and read his stuff and read the Bible that he kept hearing people talk about. Then he started getting reminders of his childhood and realized, wait a minute, everything that this Bible talks about is stuff that we kept over in West Africa that I was taken from. And he was a West African prince. He started putting stuff together, started thinking about things, and then realized, wait a minute, I am an Israelite. This is what we still do. This is what we do with honey. This is what we do with milk, all the way down to stuff on that level. He was like, these are the customs that we keep. We used to have a different language we looked at. He didn't know it as Paleo-Hebrew, right? And at least that's not what he would have called it. But that's what we call it now. Nevertheless, like he understood, oh yeah, this stuff makes sense because this is my culture. Once it became his culture and he could interpret it properly from the culture that was his, and the culture was originally intended, he had a whole different thought process. So you can look at these things culturally to see what's going on. Hey Mama, how you doing? You all right? How you doing? Thank you for being on. Thank you, Shima. Thank you, Minister Tamer. So what's the Luciferian doctrine? Sorry if that's a real dark question. Luciferian doctrine, it depends. Basically, you're dealing with one or two things. You're dealing with people that are there are different sects, S-E-C-T-S, underneath it, but you're basically dealing with either... Mainly, the main umbrellas is you're dealing with either people who say that there is no spirituality whatsoever, and therefore they don't really worship Lucifer or Satan, but they're trying to have people come together and have a religion that is anti-religion, if that makes sense. It's a little convoluted. Or, Luciferian could be people that straight up worship Satan, worship the devil. Thank you, big boys. Appreciate that. Thank you, Breezy. You said Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't know love. I don't know. I was born and raised a Jehovah's Witness, got out of being a Jehovah's Witness when I was like 12 or 13, maybe 13, 14, somewhere in there. My mom allowed me to leave the faith when I wasn't getting questions answered, and she had taught me how to study. So she's the reason why I study the way I do now. Oh, thank you, Arman. Appreciate that. Beth says the other things are called fillers. Yeah, who are you one with? That's basically holiness. Whenever you hear somebody talk about holy, put that W before that H. That's what doctrine is. Like doctrine, that's why you got to see, and even it's called being indoctrinated, inside of doctrine. Right? Indoctrinated, inside of doctrine. You said back to pills? Did you want me to go back to what I was talking about with pills? I think I pretty much was finished. Long story short, so if you go get a pill, and that pill is something that, because there can be pills that are holistic now, right? But a lot of pills that people that take it are chemicalized, right? If they're owned, if they're patented, then somebody changed, what the stuff was with the medicine. So a lot of people get medicine, and you're only getting part of it. So when you're getting a part of it, there's like a leak in the side, so to speak. It's a side effect. There's going to be a side effect because you're not eating something holistic. Right? So I could take a pill where somebody took a piece of the copper stuff, but I'll have side effects because it's not going to work with my body. My body is designed the way that the earth is, right? Because this flesh is earth, right? This flesh. That's why when you take a shower and you look down and you see all that dirt, you say, there's dirt coming off this. It's sometimes the water gets brown or whatever, right? There's dirt coming out. Why is there dirt coming off? The dirt is coming off because your skin is coming off. And it's not just the things on your skin, but literally your skin is coming off. It's dying, and you're having new flesh or new dirt. So, if in the dirt, the plant when it's grown in the dirt has to have all those things holistically together, right? Then if I only take a piece of this stuff that's in the dirt, and I'm only getting the piece, and I'm gonna be messed up. But if I make sure that I simply just go to the source and have it, this right here, this copper is gonna help me to make sure I can hold magnesium and things like that. By the way, magnesium the same way that the earth, right? The same way that the trees lose their become green and not, we think it's only because of chlorophyll. The chlorophyll is digested by the magnesium. So when you see trees that are losing their color, it's because the magnesium goes away. When the magnesium goes away, the chlorophyll can't be held by anything. And chlorophyll is nothing more than the plant version of melanin. And all human beings have melanin. So when I have melanin, especially those of us who have more melanin than others, but all of us have melanin, but if you have melanin and you're only going to take a piece of something and not get the whole thing, then you're going to be messed up. That's why people will take copper and put copper in the ground when they're growing things, to make sure that the plants can hold everything and eat everything they're supposed to. That's why they'll take magnesium and put it in plant food and in animal food and stuff like that. Because if the animal, no matter how big and strong they might look, if they can't digest, if they can't hold the stuff that hold magnesium, and by the way, magnesium in your body is at least 663 enzymes or something like that it affects throughout your entirety of your body. If you're only getting something that's going to affect 100 of the enzymes or whatever, because you only get a piece, you're going to have some side effects because your body can't digest everything. So don't get a magnesium pill if it's not going to help you to make sure you can digest everything, right? A lot of plants that you're eating, they're supposed to have magnesium. They're not grown the correct way anymore, where they're getting rotated in crops, where different minerals are transferring from one place in the ground to the other place, to the other place, to the other place. And since that's not happening, you're getting stuff that doesn't feed you the way it's supposed to. So therefore, you're only getting a piece of what you're supposed to get to. Even that is basically making it a chemical versus making it holistic. All the stuff that's supposed to come with the plant that you're eating, you're not eating it. Those are things that are holistic, right? Holistic. That's what you're dealing with. Put a W before the H, and you'll find out what's holy, right? And in our mindset, we should put a W before H before we call it holy. Is it holistic? I tell people this all the time. Before we have a conversation or argument or anything with anybody, first and foremost, once again, culture. Can you tell me that this works across the culture? Can you tell me that this works across kingdom law, marital law, natural law, laws of attraction, law of first mention, common law, law of equity, all these laws we keep talking about, admiralty law, even if you want to get into maritime law and some other things, whatever law you're talking about, right? These theoretical laws that you have, whatever, does it hold weight? That's the reason why they're called theoretical laws, because theories are not the same thing as facts. You see what I'm saying? So you got to say to yourself, is this thing holistic? Even if they tell you this is melatonin, even if they tell you this is serotonin, even if they tell you whatever it is that you're taking, do you know, can you find out for sure this is 100%, right? What was originally intended by the person who authorized that? Who authorized it? Who authorized this thing concerning universal law? Who authorized this thing concerning natural law? Because the one who created it is the one who spoke over it. And that's why even in laws today, procedural law, substantive law, whatever, if you're going somewhere and you're trying to look on the shelf, if something's patented, by law, they have to tell you it didn't come from the Most High. They say God, but they have to tell you by law that He didn't approve it. So if you see something that says that it's not non-organic, what they're trying to tell you, or they don't say organic, or they don't say, this is all natural, like 100% natural, no artificial stuff. If they don't say that, what they're telling you is, hey, we patented this, so it doesn't belong to the Most High. We don't know how to interpret the law, so therefore we don't know how to protect our rights. Once again, law protects rights. So you have a right to eat things that were made by the Creator. That's why they tell you in law. That's why you can study. They'll tell you if God didn't make it, then it's something that is patented. If it's something that's patented, then it's going to have side effects. They're not telling you all those things. They're not saying all those things to us, right? But that's what they're saying. There's a doctrine they live by, right? Even people, like when you get into law and study, right? Those of you who took Sovereignty 1 with us last time, we ended on making sure you understood the difference between public and private law, right? And if something is private, there's laws that protect those rights. If something is public, there's laws that protect those rights. And so it's all about rights, and public and private don't mix. But we don't comprehend how law works. We're trying to study a book. We say we study the Bible or whatever. And we say, but the Bible is law and case study. How do you study law and case study and don't comprehend law? How do you comprehend, I can't tell you how many people who are preachers, who preach sermons, and have never studied in monarchy. How do you talk about a kingdom and how a kingdom works and how precepts and laws and statutes and commandments and all these things, how do you talk how they work and you don't know law and you don't know monarchy? You don't even know that you're in a republic. If you're in a republic, if you're an American talking about you're in a republic is a kingdom. Stop talking about that you don't believe in kingdoms if you vote for people to be in a republic. That's what you're doing. You're voting for people to be in kingdom situations. Anyways, I'm going to leave that alone. I'm not going to go too deep into that. You said melanin is dominant with iron, not magnesium, like chlorophyll, correct? You need magnesium for your melanin. You need iron for your melanin. They do similar yet separate things. Especially if you're a male, you probably need less iron. Matter of fact, not probably. You need less iron because your body's already going to be producing. If you're healthy, your body's going to be producing iron at a greater rate. Too much iron as a male can actually, give you side effects as well, because that's not how you're engineered. Just like, if you're a woman or whatever, you need to focus on estrogen and progesterone. However, you still need to have some testosterone. Same thing with men, right? We focus on testosterone, but you also do need to have some kind of estrogen, and I think you need to have progesterone as well. I could be off on the progesterone part, but I'm pretty sure, because what's good for male is good for female, but not equally either. We're not made exactly the same, right? But yeah, you need magnesium, right? Magnesium is going to help you. Magnesium is going to help you. Selenium is going to help you. You got selenium if you're what we consider to be black. You have selenium 9 times out of 10. You're going to have selenium at the center of your melanin. If you're what we consider to be white, you're usually going to have sulfur, what we consider to be, you're going to have sulfur at the center of the melanin. So even that will change the diet and things like that. But it goes together. Kenton said, bro, imagine the rapture happening, everybody around you get taken from the light. You're not dumb. Don't put that on yourself. That's it, kind of like when you got to take one pill to help side effects of another pill you're taking, right? So they're trying to get you to be whole. That's what's happening. The same thing that happens with doctrine. A lot of people carry all these people's doctrines, right? So you took this doctrine. You said, okay, it's like Christmas or like Kwanzaa. I'm sorry to put Kwanzaa in there. Some of y'all ain't gonna like me for talking about that, but Kwanzaa is nothing more than like my people, West African, right? So, I'm mixed with a lot of stuff, but a big part of me is West African, right? And North African, Yashriel and Kemet as well, and Kush as well. So that's South Sudan, Ethiopia, and over there, nobody's really doing that because they're like, why are you going to mix this with this and this and this and this and this and then say that it's all one culture? We're all one people, but to act like all the people share the same culture is not necessarily correct, right? But people will do that. People do that with Christmas. I'm going to take Odin. The reason why Santa Claus flies, Odin. That's why he flies. You know, Santa Claus, when they say, well, he was a saint, they took like 3-4 different saints. So if you're arguing, well, there was a Saint Nicholas that was black in Africa, that means Santa Claus was really black. There were like 3-4 Santa Clauses that they used, Saint Nick's. You know, what about the coal that's in the stocking? Well, that comes from Baphomet, right? That comes from Krampus, half man, half goat. You know, he used to take children to hell and whip the children and do stuff like that. You know, what about elves? Well, you got Black Pete, that's dealing with a slave. You got elves that come from, you know, and you also mix that with the ancient stuff from pagan and Norse theology, things like that. What about Saturnalia, where it's a big orgy and, you know, festival where people switch places and positions and the rich become poor, the poor become rich for 12 days and all this stuff. Like, people do this all the time where they're just taking little pieces, right? And then we have all these side effects in society because of it, right? Same thing with the medicine, right? It's the same principles. See how the laws work? It's the principles, the statutes, the commandments. They work across the board, right? Same things happen with your medicine. I take a piece of this up. Okay, I got this medicine and only focus on the piece. I got this side effect now, so now I got to take this up. Okay, now, so I got to take this now. What was supposed to help with my problem going on with duodenum or whatever, up now I got an issue with my kidney. Okay, what is the issue with my kidney? I'm gonna take this up. Now that's gonna bring me an issue with my liver. Up. Okay, now I got to make sure I take this up. Now the issue with now that's supposed to help me with my liver is that right? And before you know it, and all they're doing is giving you fake versions of herbs. If you would simply take herbs. Or herbs. Some people want to tell you that, you know, the H doesn't matter, whatever. And I say herbs. Nevertheless, you know, if you look at these herbs that they're giving you, you're basically dealing with them giving you a piece of the herb. Why not just eat the whole herb and eat it long enough until the healing starts? It's the same thing. Instead of getting a piece of the interpretation of the doctrine, why not just eat the whole doctrine? That was so important in our culture, by the way, that what used to happen with our culture in ancient times, and some people still do it in modern times, is you would go and you would actually find, they would actually create the words out of Hebrew characters, and they would actually put a scripture out, and the child would just, you would put honey on it, because you know how the Bible says, like, the word is sweet. It's sweet to my belly, sweet to my tongue, this, that, or whatever. And so they would eat the word. They would just go and they would eat the word. And they would eat it, and they would get used to eating it, eating the whole word. And in their mind, they would see, you know, like, oh, okay, I see that this word, you know, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. Is something I say, right? So if I have my child eat that sentence, you know, like, let's say I put that out in alphabet soup, and right, or something like that, or I put it out in I don't know, alphabet soup or something, but I kept the soup hard or whatever. I didn't like soak it, and I just spelled that out. My child would say, oh, okay, that's whole. And so he would get used to eating it whole, right? Then the second somebody tried to give it to him different, he would be like, that's not what my culture says. I'm used to eating that, and I know that when I eat it incorrectly, it's not as sweet, you know? And some people would say, well, oh gosh, that's terrible, you brainwashing. You know what? I'm trying to brainwash some people, in all honesty, because you guys think, once again, you think of everything as negative because they want you to think that if anybody tells you anything outside of this wicked system is brainwashing, not realizing they're brainwashing you. What I mean by brainwashing is I want your brain to be clean. The word legal, or the word clean in Hebrew, actually just translates to legal. When they gave a sacrifice, the reason why the sacrifice had to be clean is because anything unclean was considered to be illegal. So if somebody was unclean, they were illegal. That's all that's talking about. And a lot of us are out here illegal because we have illegal interpretation of what the Most High wants for us through the Word. Thank you, Austria. Pre. You said we don't produce iron? Okay, you have things in your body that come together that you eat, and as a male, that actually, those things come together and function and help you as far as iron, right? you as a male don't need to have as much iron as a female. If you'd like to look that up, however you want to say it, I might not be saying it in the correct way. So I apologize if you're saying that I said that you produce iron. But you do not need as much iron as a male. If you'd like to go look that up, you're more than welcome to. Or if you disagree, whatever. My wife is the herbalist, so she's the one that has the business and makes tinctures and studies and teaches and all that stuff on this. I only teach up to natural medicine 1. Right, she teaches natural medicine 2 and fibroid cysts and so many other different things like that, and how to eat. And she's doing the stuff concerning her concerning her well, I don't know, a lot of people want to be under her. I forget what she's calling it. She's gonna make it an apprenticeship or something like that. She's the one to go to in that. So if I said that wrong, I do apologize. All right. But the point of the exercise is that if you're a male, you don't really need as much iron. If you do need as much iron as a woman, then something's not correct. And ladies, by the way, too, when you're not taking the iron or whatever, you have to understand that the iron is, or if you're a lot of times, if you're dealing with a lot of women who talk about that they have issues, they're cold, or you are anemic, things like that, you have to realize and recognize that you're dealing with iron issues. Usually it's as simple as that. I'm sorry, this thing keeps flipping on me. I'm trying to find the comments I haven't seen. Am I on an alkaline diet? I try to be, yep. I can't say I'm 100% faithful all the time, but I'm a lot better than I used to be. And so, yes, I do try to make sure that I'm very alkaline. You said you had to take iron before menopause? Yeah, and really, interesting thing is if you're taking iron, menopause probably comes a lot later than what it's supposed to. There are some people that hold the belief that menopause is actually something that never should happen. Technically, because of sin, there's a lot of stuff that happens to our bodies that never should have happened, right? But there's some people that tell you that menopause is something that just simply is like everything else. It's because of mineral deficiency. Like death, there is no natural cause of death. Like, technically there's really no such thing as a natural cause of death because it's not in your nature to die. Right? Like, it's mineral deficiency. You said I'm washing your brain, amen. All right. Then it said, is accepting the belief of a culture a form of indoctrination? Accepting of a doctrine. Acceptance of a doctrine is one thing. To be inside the doctrine is indoctrination. Inside doctrination. So, and by the way, that happens a lot. Like, people don't even understand as far as the school system is concerned, right? As far as the school system that we're in right now, or a lot of you are in, or your children have been in, if you don't homeschool, school is indoctrination. Understand that's like, see etymology, right? Look at how school system is set up. The people who helped set it up, even people like Thomas Jefferson told us this. That's why the burden of proof is not on us, it's on those that came before us. We can just look at what people did and what they said for themselves and listen to it. Indoctrination. Here's something easy to see. Check this out. It used to be that there was really no school. People paid for, people homeschooled all the time. The rich elite, they homeschooled. Other people didn't really go to school. You learn from your mom, you learn from your dad at home, or as much as you could. But there really wasn't such thing as school. Rich people were able, like, for example, Beethoven, Mozart, people like that. They didn't even, people would not, Mozart, or let's do it like this, Mozart and Beethoven, really, Mozart died broke, but Beethoven didn't make most of his money off of writing some of the great things that you play today. Because a lot of people don't comprehend. You give your gift, you give your calling, and then people will pay you or donate to you. In essence, they'll give you an offering, in a sense, because you give your gift so well. They want you to bring it into their homes. That's the principle, right? So Beethoven simply wrote these great songs from when he was a little boy. I believe he wrote Fur Elise or Moonlight Sonata. Might have wrote Moonlight Sonata when he was like 3-4 years old, something crazy like that, right? Like, we can't even, I can't even, I still have a hard time. Moonlight Sonata is one of my favorite songs to play. That 3 parts, by the way, we usually only know the slow one, the slow part of it. The second part, I don't know if it's the adagio or whatever. I think it's too slow to be an adagio. Definitely not an allegro. Anyways, though, but we know the slow one. But he wrote that when he was 3 years old. So he had a gift. He kept giving the gift, and people would pay him to teach their daughters and their sons. Usually their daughters first. The daughters actually were the ones that would get taught how to play piano more than the sons. And so the rich elite would pay him whatever his price was, because his music was popular. Right, that's basically what happened. Now they flipped it to where they got people enslaved. So now, they have you pay for the music, and they don't teach you how to do the music. Back then, you had to show your gift was what was up, and then you owned your stuff. And even if you didn't own it the way that we say own it now, but people knew you were the one that wrote it. When they knew you were the one that wrote it, they brought you in to pay you, right? And that's how that went. Right now, education has been flipped, where first they had this stuff called elementary, and then secondary, and then they had college, right? Now we have preschool and we have middle school and all that, but just roll with me for a second. So you had basically a lot of people who were working who weren't going to be able to afford to go to school because their parents were going to need them to work. So they didn't worry about them. They were always going to be in debt. They were always going to be slaves. They didn't care about them. They came up with elementary school. Elementary school really wasn't going to do too much as far as separation. Maybe you got paid a little more, but you were still going to be subservient. Most people weren't going to be able to go past that, because once they got to a certain age, especially with sickness and disease and people having, 12, 13, 14, 15 children, things like that, people going for things like that, especially the poor class, they were like, you know what, okay, they're not going to be able to do it or whatever, so we'll give them elementary school. They'll be just indoctrinated enough to where they still want to be with us or whatever, but they won't really amount to much. After that, you have people that go to, secondary, what we now call high school. They have a higher level of education. They're separated some. They won't make minimum wage, but they ain't really going to make that much. And we'll go ahead and allow them to stay there and function there. Then you had the people who could afford college, because back then it wasn't about go to college for 4 years and get your degree or whatever. It was back then the same thing that a lot of people do now, which is you send your child to school. Back then maybe you go to school for a year, try your best in certain things, but you can kind of do whatever you want, and then just pay us the right amount, and we'll say that your child, learn whatever from whatever university. Some of them did the work, a lot of them didn't. And so if you did that you got a bachelor's degree. Why? Because men, they weren't focused on women, right? So men, that's a different culture. They weren't like our universities that we started. The first universities like at Mali, which was started by a woman, by the way, and what we brought to Spain, 13 universities in Spain. The first 13 universities came from the Moors, and then universities have spread into Europe and things like that, and now have made their way, over to all over the world where people look for universities. Well, the first ones were the ones that came from, West Africa. Even though you could say Kemet was a university, so to speak, because people came over there to learn too. And you could say Kush was a university because people came to learn from there. You could say Carthage was a university, et cetera, et cetera. Right? But as far as what we look at as a university today, that's first started by West Africans and started by the Moors. North Africans, West Africans, a little bit of East Africans as well. And that's what you're dealing with, right? Traveling up throughout the world. So now when you're dealing with those things, that was what it used to be. What is it today? Well, Thomas Jefferson says, hey, we're going to flip it. You go there, you get your bachelor's, because an eligible bachelor, men usually get married around that age or whatever, so we'll call it your bachelor's. After you get your bachelor's, what comes next? Your master's. Now, what is a master? We think that a master is an owner of a person, right? That's what we've been taught by somebody else. But a master and an owner are two different things. An owner is over a person. Unfortunately, that's what they believe. So that was their culture. So somebody who was an owner of people, they owned people. A master was a teacher. So if you were a slave master, in essence, you were teaching the slave how to stay a slave, just like they do today. They teach you how to make sure you stay in taxes, and then you can't figure out why you are struggling with these taxes. They teach you how to make sure that you cause somebody else's business to succeed, and then you try to figure out, why have I never learned how to write how to write a check for myself? Why is it that they teach you how to work for somebody else, but in school they don't teach you how to write out checks? And before somebody says, we were taught that, I get it, okay, fine. There are outliers, but let's not act like every single person knew what a check was, or knew what credit was, or knew what the older version of credit was, or knew what a bill of exchange was. Like, these are not things that are taught in the normal high school experience, even in private schools sometimes. From what my comprehension of, I never went to one, but from people who've gone to private school, they tell me they weren't necessarily learning bill of exchange and things like that outside of being able to write it down for a test, but they didn't put it into action. They didn't learn how to invest. Maybe mom and dad taught them how to invest, right? But these are things that happen with the word usage. This is etymology. This is why a lot of people don't know. Same to you, Christine. Thank you. So these are things, right? So a master is a teacher. So you got your master's degree. Why? Because you could teach what they considered to be the main culture that everybody had to go by. If you could teach what that culture was that they wanted everybody to go by, then you got your master's. And here's doctrine. If you could make sure that you mastered the doctrine and could write out things to make sure that the doctrine remained over people. What is a doctrine? Once again, doctrine is a belief system. Doctrine is a belief that you teach. Doctrine is a belief that you hold. And doctrine is something that can be held by any organization or any government, right? And the military is there to uphold doctrine as well. That's not even getting to the Black's Law Dictionary. Black's Law Dictionary goes deeper. And we talked about even interpretation of doctrine, interpreting those statutes and all these different words we've been talking about. These statutes and precepts and all these different things. This is why we study what we study. And if you don't comprehend those things, then you're not going to get the doctrine. And that's why a lot of people get their behinds kicked. So even your education is doctrine. So if you're living inside of a doctrine, you're indoctrinated. That's all it's talking about. A lot of people want you to believe to be indoctrinated. It means that somebody's lying to you or somebody has to brainwash you or that. No. Indoctrination, you're inside a doctrine. Period. Like we can just use words, words are pretty clear cut, right? We can simply use words the way they're designed to be used. If you are indoctrinated, you're inside a doctrine. It really breaks down to something that simple. It really breaks down to something that simple. Salah. And so that's why doctrine is important. Yeah, they don't teach personal finance. Yeah, and you would think they need. Well, they do need to teach it to people of high school age. But if you're going to high school, question is high school there to help you to become a better individual, or is high school there better is being set up to help you to make sure that you have a job for somebody else? Oh, it's my pleasure. It's our pleasure, Beth. Thank you. You said you're lost. Well, I don't know. We've been talking for a while, so and this is part 23 of our series. So there's stuff you can look up on my podcast or on YouTube to be able to catch up with it. But yeah, we've talked about quite a bit, but we're talking about doctrine, what the actual word doctrine means, and how a lot of people have been indoctrinated, so to speak. They've been living inside of a false doctrine, which says that doctrine only means what somebody believes religiously, rather than everything you're going through is doctrine, because everything you're going through is culture. You said doctrine is the paper the professor teaches the students off of. Boom, there you go, right? Yeah, and exactly, Beth. They're not teaching you for that. Hey, Silver Loki, how you doing? They're not teaching you how to, they're not teaching you in school to make sure that you benefit self. They're teaching you to make sure you benefit others. And the system is not set up for, basically you got to understand, that's when we get into classism. That's when you get into chauvinism. That's when you get into patriarchy. Dare I say, that's when you get into racism. That's when you get into schisms and things like that. All these systems that are set up to help people to stay apart. Understand from the beginning, from the jump, that a lot of the system, that a lot of parts of the system that we're dealing with, they deal with separation. That's why police officers is an interesting conversation. If you look at police officers in America, why do police officers in America and Europe, even though they're both taught to actually still do the same thing as far as classism and racism, but why do they do it differently? Right? It's because of culture. In America, you were dealing with chattel slavery, and so you had slave patrols. And if you simply do a quick research and you look up a slave patrol badge and you look up a police badge, you'll see they look the same because one came out of the other. In England, you're having an issue to where they have too many people doing a lot of terrible things, and you have a lot of people who are, judges and other positions over there that are messing people over. And so out of that, they come up with a system, and that system doesn't require them to do as much chasing after slaves, because even though chattel slavery is a thing, it's not as relevant over there, especially because they're switching over to capitalism. And that's why England and America actually split, because you had chattel slave owners. We only talk about the tax issue, but we don't talk about the fact that they wanted to stay in control of the bond. That's why you see in the Declaration of Independence and in the Constitution them talking about the bond. They won't use the word slave, but they talk about the bond. And remember that when people left the United States and they tried to put that confederacy together, which didn't work because the confederacy, the only confederacies that have ever been legal and upheld by any other nations, are considered to be native, indigenous people to Turtle Island, right? So they had a confederacy, but it was an illegal confederacy. But they said they broke into that. They said they were breaking away from that because their confederacy was going to serve both the bond and the free. You got to remember what the states wrote out, the reasons why, and why President Jefferson Davis was voted in to be the president of the Confederacy. Because he had given this impassioned speech when they knew that basically the time was up for chattel slavery being a thing within itself, and that capitalism was going to take control, and therefore chattel slavery had to be in control of the government. And the people said, oh, that's taken away from us. That's states' rights. We as people of this state, we believe that we should have the right to have slaves within our own power. Now, you could say if we take out the terrible racist values of all that, all that's really going on is private law, public law. They were saying that slaves, because they didn't consider people to be slaves, to be people. You know, when people tell you that they consider slaves to be 3/5 of a human being, that's a lie. They didn't consider slaves to be human at all. Remember, the North and the South were having issues with who should pay how much taxes, and the North was saying you should pay more because you got more land, and you guys already started stretching out and illegally going into places all the way over to the West Coast. So if that's what you're doing already and trying to get stuff like that, you got more land and Virginia. Remember, Virginia was Virginia and West Virginia. Remember, the Carolinas was North Carolina and South Carolina. It was all one at one point. So they're like, you guys, just you two states, y'all are bigger than pretty much everybody else. You guys should be paying more. And so they came up with a compromise to say, okay, whatever's our property, we'll pay 3/5. You know, we'll pay 60%. You know, basically, we'll set this thing up mathematically where our taxes end up being 60% of all the taxes that are being paid. That's what the 3/5 compromise was. And then the North came back and said, well, what about all these human beings you got down there? What about all these slaves? Because the North was trying to get them to pay more percentage. The North had slaves too. The North was simply saying, well, you guys got more, and they were trying to use it as an argument. South was like, well, you guys got slaves too. But they're like, but you got more, just like you got more land, so you should pay more for your slaves too. And then and then plus your slaves are people, so why aren't they paying taxes, or why aren't you paying taxes for each person? And they said, no, you know the deal. They said, these are not people. These are slaves. These slaves, you know, they didn't even call them slaves. Instead, they might call them, N-words or property, whatever. But they said, these are not people. So what did they do? They said, okay, bet. And so when they said they're not people, they said, all right, then you only got to pay, 3/5 of this whole slave tax or whatever, and we'll pay the other 2/5. So they didn't say slaves were 3/5 of a human being. They said because they are not human, we can put them under 3/5 compromise. Right? Like, that's what you're dealing with. I forgot how I even got down this road. Holy Spirit help me. We were talking about something having to do with, but anyway, oh yeah. So, even dealing with chattel slavery and stuff, that's how you get, like, the governments being different concerning that. Because think about it, once you get to the 9th president, you call him the first president, George Washington, but there were 8 presidents before him. The first of which of those 8 presidents actually have black blood. Nevertheless, you had 8 presidents before. You had the 9th president, George Washington, the first president under this old Moroccan or American constitution that comes out, because Morocco had to give America the license to be sovereign. Another country has to tell you you're sovereign. A sovereign nation has to give you authority. And so that's why you have the American Moroccan flag. If you want to look that up sometime, there's such thing as the American Moroccan flag. And that was basically just a flag saying America had the right to do business. Once they had the right to do business, they were sovereign. They were a corporation. Even the United States of America, technically, in a sense, is a corporation, right? But they were allowed to do certain things or whatever as far as business. That's why you should make sure you're in sovereignty, reaching out to be a non-citizen national, so you can be a citizen of the United States of America rather than public property, be a citizen of the United States corporation. Right? They both serve 2 different purposes. That doesn't mean that you bow down to everything the United States of America says. It just means that you have the right to live as a private citizen, and that they have to back you up as a private citizen. 50 states. Remember, a state is a country, so that means 50 states and 6 other territories or whatever it is. They have to back you up when you're there, no matter what. That's what the 50 United States are. It's 50 united countries that come together. So. But that's what the original fight was even over. The original fight was not over this and that. You can even see in the language of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. While they themselves had slaves, they said, well, our bond, we need to make sure that they are from under the oppression of the tyrant. but you're the tyrant if they're your bond. If you don't even refer to them as human beings, if you think you don't have to pay taxes for them as human beings, you only want to pay for them as property, right? But it's always in the language, it's always in the culture. It's coming. You see how it's coming all the way back. It's interpretation of the doctrine of the Constitution of the United States, and the doctrine of the Constitution of the United States of America, two different things. And people don't, but because we don't recognize doctrine or we don't recognize law correctly, right? And that's one of the reasons why people have a hard time with finance. How do you teach somebody finance if you don't teach that there's a such thing as the bond and the indentured servants? And like how do you not teach about class? Like, how can you really teach about finances if you don't teach about classism? You said, what age is too young for this level of knowledge? I think that babies should know this from the jump. It depends on what your baby's going to do and what you guys do. And maybe they've been indoctrinated with some stuff you need to get them out of first, but I think you should be giving this to everybody. It's truth, right? Yeah, matter of fact, nowadays, you got to give them both. You got to give them the lie. Hey, this is what they're going to tell you, but this is what really happened. You got to give them both nowadays. Yeah, and it's treasonous, right? Henry said, knowledge is amazing. Thank you. Okay, amen. Yeah, and South Carolina. Yeah, matter of fact, South Carolina is the first state to leave the Union, and read why they said they left the Union. It's in northern, New York, lynching, lead capital city. Most definitely. You said the red with green star. Yeah. Moroccan. Well, that's the Moroccan flag. There's an actual American Moroccan flag. If you were to just type in on Google real quick, if you want to go type in American Moroccan flag, right? And see what pops up in Google image. That's a flag that people still wave. Because Morocco had to give permission to America. And so America's doctrine had to be based off of a Moroccan doctrine, which means, if you know that they had a sultan, that means that Americans' doctrine, as much as they want to talk about not being under Sharia law and this and that, America wasn't allowed to have a doctrine until a Muslim sultan said you could have a doctrine, had to sign off on it. So when you talk about your Christian nation, you're not even really a Christian nation. You're really a Muslim Moorish nation, which is why a Moor has the same rights as a non-citizen national. That's why a lot of people out here, I'm not mad at them when people are out here saying, hey, teach yourself, or make sure that you understand we're Moors, this and that. Okay, make sure you can prove it on paper. Once you prove it on paper, all you got to do is get somebody of a high-ranking position from Morocco to basically vouch for you. If you can, you get your stuff changed tomorrow. Like, that's how easy it is. So regardless of outcome, it's got to come to light. Thank you, Marion. Appreciate that. Chaba says, pardon, side note, whilst I'm being spontaneous, where would I find spring course outline? It's not up on the website yet. If you'd like to talk to me about it, you can. It's written out. The spring course outline, I'll just say it real quick. The classes are going to be basic Hebrew. Hebrew characters, basic Hebrew. This is all starting the week of January 31st. Hebrew characters, basic Hebrew, sovereignty 1, sovereignty 2, natural medicine 2, basic French, and cryptocurrency. But I actually meant to have it for you guys yesterday and have it up. It should have been done by the 1st, but I'm still doing a lot of the stuff by myself right now, and my wife and I. I mean, we have the stuff there. It's just not public yet because I'm not 100% okay with a couple of the outlines. My wife was talking about at least putting up a poster or something that at least will show the classes on there. But I like to have the curriculum for you guys to see what's going to be taught on there as well. But, you can always contact us. So just reach out to us, DM us, text us, email us. If for whatever reason, if something doesn't work, you can put in, can't you guys it's hard for me to see it for some reason, but I know you guys can put questions on my actual page, right? You can actually, we have a question mark box here. There's actually a question mark box on the TikTok page. So you can go on there and just ask the question or whatever, and it allows me to get back to you. Or I think I can even make a video directly responding to your question. But yeah, so Yeah, thank you, Shabbos. Yeah, shoot us a text. Coleman said, I was told the Moorish flag flew on Turtle Island 740 years before the so-called discovery of the U.S. I'm not 100% sure that's true, but there's a lot of stuff that points towards that for certain. There's the documentation by natives and documentation by people who are Moorish, that it seems to be also too, that there's people that are from Native American tribes that legally are considered to be Moors. Now it can get tricky sometimes though, because sometimes a Moor, is considered to just be a black person in history. And, natives were copper colored. They were black, what we would call black. So sometimes they were called Moors just because they were black. But sometimes they were called Moors because there were Moorish people that came, and whether you want to say they mixed with or were some of the original tribes in Turtle Island, we know there are people that were Moors. But it's hard sometimes because for a lot of white people, hey, Moor just means black. So if they're talking about Moor, they're just saying, oh, black. If they say a Moorish man is a black man, sometimes they could be saying Moorish man. Moorish man could be an Israelite. Moorish man could be an Arabian. Arabian, by the way, just means somebody that it was a black person back then, but it was a person also too. If you were Arabian, it just meant that you were a nomadic person. So if you were nomadic, that meant you were Arabian. Nowadays, we think Arabic is a language or a people, but Arabic just meant you were nomadic. So Israel is Arabic. So when somebody says, oh yeah, they were doing Arabic and they were doing this, like, do you know what these terms mean? Yeah, Israelites were Arabic, but you're trying to say that automatically means they were Ishmael. Some of them Ishmaelites mixed with it, some of them not, right? But Arabic doesn't mean that they were Muslim. But now that because of a lot of countries, use Muslim canon as part of their doctrine or even part of their constitution, that's where we kind of taken it to. Indigenous of Turtle Island, yeah. So but once again, that's doctrinal, and people don't understand doctrine is what. Doctrine has to have proper interpretation, and doctrine having interpretation has to mean that you're interpreting it by what the author meant it to be. So if the author uses terms like bond, if the author says savage, the author of the author, I think it's of the Declaration of Independence, and they talk about native, they talk about savagery. Right? So while telling you they need to be independent of the king because he's a tyrant, they're telling you that they also, white man's burden, manifest destiny, they also need to kill off natives. That's the doctrine. Now, if you think that doctrine is going to serve you the same way it serves somebody else, and therefore you don't think you need to be sovereign and you need to have micronation and you need to make sure you have land of your own and you don't need to have some kind of other land you can go to outside of this, and make sure that you were like-minded people, and make sure that you even like when people want to come up and be on the land and help us, and there's, giving donation to make sure we have a place to stay by the end of this year and stuff like that. When people are dealing with that, you got to understand, like, we have to even vet those people. We have to go through a process of seeing who's who. You got to prove yourself too, because a lot of people are coming in here with a Sambo spirit, and they coming in here not thinking about indoctrination. That's why we're talking about all this stuff as far as indoctrination. We're not doing this just because for no reason. Like when we come together, when we do the stuff on Zoom, when we help the people, when we bless people who need food, or we're clothing people, doing whatever, it's not just random people we're doing this with. Like, we got to know you're like-minded, because you can come in there and mess some stuff up. There's some people that are coming in there who might mean well, but they don't know any better because they don't have the doctrine. They've misinterpreted it. It's been misinterpreted to them, or they never had any interpretation in the first place. They started applying what they feel doctrine is, and that's illegal. You see what I'm saying? That's illegal, right? That's an illegal thing. If you were to try to go to a court of law and apply, that's why you mess up. That's why people mess up. Something as simple as somebody going to law and trying to tell them what their rights are. They already know what your rights are. You've lost. You're not in a court of law to discuss rights. You're in a court of law to discuss law. Law protects rights. So you can't come to somewhere where somebody's trying to do something and you talking about rights, but don't know the laws of the land to protect your rights. It's real, but it's true. It might hurt some people's feelings, to hear that, but it's real. It's real. This is one of the reasons we have an issue. This is one of the reasons why people are fighting the way that they're fighting. You trying to have a discussion about, your rights. You were born with unalienable rights. Even the Constitution talks about that. You can't be separated from rights. The problem is, do you know law? The problem is, like, you have all these rights. You have a right to put your signature or anything else. The law protects you to where you don't have to put your signature on stuff you don't want to put it on. And the law says that, hey, if you put your signature on something, make sure it says without prejudice in UCC 1-308 so you can maintain your humanity. Problem is nobody taught you that, so you've been signing your humanity away often. Your parents signed your humanity away with that birth certificate. You keep signing your ability away when you keep doing something that's illegal. It's illegal to use your Social Security number as identification, but you keep on doing it. This is all law. This is all law. It's illegal for you to eat something that is not real food. But if they tell you it's not real food and you sign off on it by paying for it, when you pay for something, you're entering in the contract. So when you pay for it, it's yours. You can't sue the store when they told you it wasn't real. Well, then you say, no, they didn't tell me it wasn't real. I didn't know it wasn't real. Well, what did they say? Ignorance is no excuse for breaking the law. You had the law to protect you. It said on there that it wasn't juice, it was drink. I didn't know that for years. I'm going to keep it 100 with you. I'm going to keep it a buck. I didn't know that there was a difference between juice and drink, and then I didn't really understand the difference between juice and drink until probably like my late 20s. I'm gonna be honest with you. I still, so I'm 39 now. So a huge chunk of my life, I didn't know there was a difference between juice and drink. My mom would even send me to the store and say, go get orange juice. And she would send me back multiple times. And I'm sitting there thinking I got orange juice. I didn't know it was drink. If she said specifically get orange juice, but she never taught, she put me through the exercise, but never told that to me, right? Now, she taught me a bunch of things. I'm not here to down my mom. I'm just saying that's an example of how I did not know what it was. She kept sending me back to the store. Go get this juice. I don't know what you're talking about, Mom. I'm just going getting the stuff. Heck, we've had it in the house before, but because she had multiple sclerosis and she's trying to be healthier now, she's saying you can't. What she was telling me without telling me, right? Without teaching me, without giving me the interpretation, she was giving me a doctrine, but I couldn't live up to the doctrine. You see how that works? And that's what we're doing. We're telling people, be better, do this, get land. Come together as a people. Stop worrying about stuff. We had somebody, what was it, yesterday? And it came on, hey, you need to make sure the time is up. Tell people it's time to fight. It's time to fight against the government. I said, if I put my people in a position to where we just start fighting, right? Do you have a place where we can stay? Do you have the weaponry to make sure we're okay? Can you make sure that our children are still going to be educated? Do you have a place outside of the United States of America if we need to go away from it? Do you have a micronation so that they can't come and say, hey, this is American land that you're trying to fight us against? Right? Like, you're putting your people in a position where they're going to die. You don't have any plan. You're just saying fight first without comprehending that even if we're going to fight, you got to fight from a place where you have your own and you have a law to protect your people's rights. What is the law? Is it going to be, is part of our law going to be people need to know Kung Fu? Is part of our law going to be this is how many gates we're going to have? Is part of our law going to be this is how we have our mind set up? Is part of our law going to be this is a micronation? So technically, if something does jump off, they can't come and get us because we already have documentation and protection and saying that you can't do this over here to us, right? Therefore, if we do need to call over another country can come over and help us because we are not technically part of the United States of America, and therefore they're safe and be able to help us as far as being a micronation. Do you have multiple pieces of land? All right, can we get it set up first to where we got not just one state we're in, but then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 states next to each other where people are living with each other, and if something goes down, people can converge? You see what I'm saying? Versus just being like, hey, this brother or sister, they live in Cali. This brother or sister, they live at the tip, most southeast tip of Florida. Something's gonna go down. Let's fight. How you gonna fight for each other? Right? Where's the law? Yeah, you said Sunny D, equals drink, not real juice. Yeah, a lot of them. Shoot, I can't tell you how long, like, this is for real. If we keep it 100, how many people grew up? I mean, me, you might have grown up a little better as far as knowledge than this, me. But how many of y'all grew up and you was tearing up Arizona iced tea and all the different flavors they started coming out with, and then finally realized that it wasn't real? Matter of fact, I think on the can, I think they took it off now, but it used to even tell you, like, it would say 100%, it would say like 100% juice cocktail or something like that. And then it used to say like 5% juice. So we were, I don't know what the other 95% was, but we were not eating food. right? Like Arizona iced tea, that's like a gas station legend. I didn't even know they sold it in stores. I thought you only got it until like the last 5 years or so. I didn't even know they sold it in stores. I thought and it always Arizona iced tea, that's like a gas station legend. I didn't even know they sold it in stores. I thought you only got it until like the last 5 years or so. I didn't even know they sold it in stores. I thought and it always, even when it started going up to $1 and something, that thing said on the can at 99 cents whole time, right? You know, but like, you know, you look back at this stuff, that's what they had us doing. And the doctrine was on there. It told you on the can, the doctrine was on there, the belief system they uphold. But they were telling you, we can't own this, or we can't call it Arizona if it's real stuff. So what we'll do is we'll just say, you know, we'll tell you that it's 100% juice cocktail, but you have to know the law. You don't need to know how to interpret the doctrine in order to comprehend what it was. Yeah, a lot of us did, Anton. Or Anthony, sorry. Brandon says, I didn't drink it, but I didn't know that Arizona iced tea wasn't iced tea. Yeah, I didn't know either. Matter of fact, I didn't like real iced tea. Go figure. Actually, I can't mess with a lot of real iced tea because a lot of people put so much sugar in iced tea, it actually messes with my eyes. So I don't drink, like, especially when they be, what is it, McDonald's iced tea? McDonald's iced tea, like, even when I speak it, I'm not going to speak it too much more, but when I have drank that before, like, just to think about it, it messes with me. Like, my stomach flips whenever I say it. Yeah, cheese versus cheese food. Yeah, and cheese not necessarily even the greatest for us, but heck, if you're gonna eat it, at least eat real cheese. You know, vitamin C is something that's necessary. Yeah. Little hugs, are those the little juices that came? I don't even remember the flavors. I just called them red. You know, we called them red, blue, purple. You know, give me the give me the pink. I don't even know what their flavors actually were. But yeah, but that was all stuff that was fake. Used to buy by the gallon. Yeah, so did I for a minute. For a minute, I used to buy by the gallon too. And then you try to figure out, like, my chest is hurting. What's going on? Like, I don't know what's going on. I mean, that stuff was more dangerous than, you know, cigarettes. You smoke a pack of cigarettes and be all right in the day. You finish drinking, you know, half a gallon of Arizona iced tea. You don't know what's going on. You said that's what you mean by lies? Yeah. Iced tea in the South is sugar water. Yeah, I mean, it's just like Kool-Aid, basically. I guess it has a little more nutritional value than Kool-Aid, though. Yeah, but these are the things we're talking about. This is all doctrine. What do I drink now? I mean, I'll be honest with you, every once in a while I might dabble a little bit in some soda or something like that. When I do, I try to make sure it's like 3/4 water and like the rest is soda, and sometimes even less than that, just because I kind of still have a little addiction in my head. I don't really do sugar. I'm not really into sweets. So it's not really a huge problem, but every once in a while I do, you know, have a taste for stuff. It's usually nostalgia, usually just because I see it, or I see somebody else drinking it and something happens in my mind. That's how addictions work, unfortunately. You know, but for the most part, I'm trying to drink water. Juice, you got to be careful with too, because if you do juice, you might as well just have the fruit while it's ripe, or the vegetable while it's ripe, or just juice it where you drink the whole thing, you know. And I'm talking about literally the whole thing, the stem, the seeds, whatever, unless you saving seed to you know, grow some food. But you know, all those different things. He said, who is the government that I speak of? The government that I speak of, which well, we were focusing in on government of the United States of America, but across the board. You know, really, if you're talking about anybody who's talking about government, for the most part, you're dealing with pretty much corporations. You're dealing with republics. You're dealing with democracy. If you're dealing with democracy, communism too, totalitarianism, and a lot of monarchies, because a lot of monarchies are basically dressed up as monarchies, but they're really, you know, they have, wow, what am I forgetting? Parliaments and things like that, and a lot of parliaments are over the kingdom. Some of them are, but a lot of them are. They set that up when John messed it up and was so jacked up that they were able to take it. You know, who we know in folklore is Prince John or whatever, but we forget he was actually a person, King John, and King John who did come after Richard. And while King John didn't necessarily do the stuff on the level, like as far as trying to be evil, like was believed, he was somebody who was not up to par to be king, and he messed up a lot of stuff and messed it up so bad that Parliament took over, right? But you're dealing with that type of governments all over the place. One world order, new world order, one world government, one world religion, right? It's that's something that's there everywhere, and people are once again, they don't comprehend doctrine. So they tell us that the doctrine and stuff, but they're not. It's not real. You said I only drink my own tea. Thanks for your words. I'm loving the hibiscus. Amen. Amen. Was somebody trying to call in? Looks like we had somebody Finta on here trying to call in. I'm trying to see if I can get you on. If you're still with us, give me a second. If you can be on for a little bit. I don't know how long, but we'll try and get you on here so you can be heard. So if you'd like to call in, you feel free to come on the Kofi Ofori podcast. And anybody can call in if you would like to. If you're on TikTok, unfortunately, the way it works there, you have to have, I think, 1,000 people who are part of your community, or they call it followers, to be on there. But okay, we sent the invite to Finta. If you want to come on, you can. But yeah, all those things are necessary for us to get into. Brandon said, I do Swerve now. It cooks and tastes exactly like sugar, but it doesn't spike insulin and has 0 calories. Okay, I don't know what Swerve is, so that's the first I think I'm hearing. I feel like I've heard of it before, but I don't know. One thing I would say with all that stuff, whether it's butter or fake cheese or whatever, be careful, especially if it's got, or even like stuff like I used to not know what it was, but I could taste something was wrong with it, and then I figured out it was, like edamame is like soy or any soy products, especially if you're a man. Soy is not necessarily something that's great for you. Soy was not designed to eat. Soy was designed to be something that they put in the ground so that they could keep having the ground, basically being tilled, so to speak, so that the ground could still function and make sure it was growing something out of it. And then they had so much of it that they started selling to people as something to eat, kind of like what happened with fluoride. Fluoride was not originally designed, or fluoride basically was a byproduct of stuff that was being left in warehouses, and they wanted to make money off of it, so they said, well, maybe you can put it in water, and then they started putting it in toothpaste, but it's actually poisonous. Fluoride is a poison, right? If you look up what fluoride is and then look on the periodic table, it's with the poisons. So, you should stay away from that. Same thing with soy. Soy is not really good for you in any way, shape, or form. If you need it as an emergency thing for some health stuff and you had nothing else there to eat or whatever, or nothing to be able to like make a, whatever concoction you need, then maybe soy is on the menu. But if you never had soy again, your body wouldn't miss anything. You said people should know there is a problem if companies have to put real chicken, real this and that. But I missed the rest of what you were saying. Oh yeah. You can go live, Shabbos. Send us a shout out when you do or whatever. Maybe we can let people know when you're going live. But this is the reality that we're going through. And think about that. My wife and I, we laughed a while ago. I want to say this was like 2014 or so. I can remember when it was either 2014 or 2015, and I can remember because she was around when, because she was pregnant at the time, and it was just us two at the store. One of the few times now that it's just us two, but it was us two at the store, and we were sitting there, we were laughing because we realized, like you don't think about it, but we had started buying for a while, certain beef, and it was always grass fed, and then we looked at each other, started laughing, and we realized at the same time, like, why in the world are you buying grass fed beef? Like, is there any other type of beef? And then we realized real quick, they have to be honest, legally, law, right? So they have to tell you, hey, buy this beef if you want beef that's fed grass. But cows pretty much only eat grass, right? Apparently not. And, mad cow disease, when it spread and stuff, they don't talk about the fact that spread because there were dead cows that they just simply ground up and fed to other cows. They don't talk about the fact that some cows are eating bird feed. Some cows are just eating whatever scraps that they have. They put in the bucket just like they do for pigs. And cows aren't designed for that. Cows have 4 stomachs, and they have those 4 stomachs to be able to chew up things. They designed those cows. The cows that you think of as cows that are natural, a lot of the cows that you're eating or drinking, especially the ones you drink the milk out of, those cows are actually, designed specifically to be able to, they've been bred over time to be able to do what they do, as far as eat what they eat. And so if you got cows that aren't natural, you have a problem. And we had a problem called mad cow disease. So can I tell you the difference between amaze and amazing from yesterday, please? So same, so maze just means, what is, if you're inside of what we would call maze, M-A-Z-E, what is that? Maze is talking about you have an entry point and there are paths that come together that help you to be able to get to a desired end. When you put the letter A before it, it means it's the opposite. So if you're amazed, or if you're in amazement, right, then that means that somebody has designed something to make it very hard for you to get on the right path. In other words, there's a straight road and there's a great winding road. The straight road, maze. The great winding road, a maze. Right? Both of them designed to get you to go down paths, but one designed to get you to a desired end that's just for you. One designed to be able to get you to something that serves somebody else and ultimately isn't for you and leads to your destruction. Right? And to put the other word we were talking about yesterday too with that's why you have also amusement. What is muse? Muse means to think. So when you say you are my muse, what you're saying is you cause me to think. If you muse, you think. But if you go to an amusement park or do anything for amusement, you're saying, hey, I don't want to think right now. I want somebody else to guide my thinking. That's what we're talking about. Great question. Thank you for bringing that back. I'm trying to catch. Okay. The Aboriginal one says, why do the military answer to U.S. corporation or American we the people? I don't know what you mean by answer to. They make so the corporation, they make a dedication to the United States. I was in the military, right? We put up our right hand and said, I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That was what the decree was. But that's part of the corporation. And if you're against the corporation, if you're an enemy of foreign and domestic. Now, some people in the military who've gotten out, what they do, which is, bless them for this, they say, hey, my thought process has changed to where America's not exactly what I thought it should be and what I fought for. Therefore, I still carry that mantra against all enemies, foreign and domestic, but now I look at certain different people as my enemy. But while you're in, what you're saying is that you're raising your right hand. The word right talking about a place of power, and also talking about you believe this to help you to be righteous. Righteous meaning right legal standing. So you're saying what puts you in right legal standing is that you will put your life on the line for everybody, or for anything, and against anybody and anything that is not part of the United States corporation. A lot of us don't know that. I put my hand up at age 17 and did that. So before my 18th birthday, I was already supporting and defending the Constitution of the United States. And I have mad respect for people that do it, by the way, because they do it earnestly. I'm not going to I think it's really wrong when we just be like, hey, because you're in the military, because you did this oath at one point in your life or whatever, then you're a terrible person. Like, no, like the person, if they're willing to put their life on the line for something, like, bless you for that. Bless you for that mentality. You just got your life on the line for the wrong thing. Just Bank says, so soy has estrogen, and that's why these new men so feminine. Well, it deals with estrogen, definitely. And also, a lot of times what happens too is, there's fake versions of soy even. And a lot of times it's just fake versions of stuff here. So a lot of people have that's why you have to be careful with like BPA, products and stuff. Bisphenol bisphenol acid, is it? I'm forgetting what it is. Bisphenol acid. I feel like that's wrong. But BPA, basically on the bottle, when you deal with BPA on the bottle, you're talking about basically anything that's plastic. And pretty much everything we get nowadays is in plastic. So even if I get something that's in plastic, I got to like eat it real fast or drink it real fast. Because if it's just sitting there soaking in plastic, it means that it's soaking up stuff that could cause issues. But a lot of times it's also not just estrogen, which soy has a lot of. And by the way, if you're a woman, you still shouldn't have more estrogen than you're supposed to. So don't think that just because you're a woman, soy is better. Like, you can deal with soy better because you need more estrogen, but soy is not. You don't need to go past what you're supposed to in estrogen. Matter of fact, a lot of people who have problems with cancer is because you're dealing with stuff that has to do with estrogen issues. So estrogen issues, if you have too much estrogen, what's going to happen is, or even if it's a lot of stuff that the body will think it's estrogen, which is the problem with bisphenol A and or BPA and this plastic stuff that's going on. You'll eat stuff, and your body will get this stuff because it digests it, just like you have microplastic and stuff that's in the water, where there's so much plastic now out there and so much trash is thrown in the ocean and in rivers and stuff that it's kind of like fish now who have never even been caught in plastic or whatever, they have plastic inside them, stuff like that. Like, that's how much of a problem stuff is. But when you're dealing with this with plastic, just straight up having plastic on you, you're wearing it, you're using it, you're eating stuff out of it, you're eating with plasticware instead of silverware, etc. When you're dealing with those items, you have to have a once again, like, it's doctrine. They write this stuff out, but they don't, you have to know how to read it. You have to know how to interpret it. When you're looking at when you're eating this stuff, what happens is you have estrogen that tells your body and your cells to do certain things. Plastic and a lot of stuff that has BPA is something that they designed to be able. Matter of fact, it was designed originally to. They put enough of it together. They realized that helmets for the military were getting harder and harder. So when they realized they could protect people with these helmets, and it was hard for stuff to get through, they go, okay, we need to go ahead and use this, right? And then it turned into other things, and they started putting groceries in plastic. Remember, for a long time, groceries only came in paper bags. So now when people are like, oh, this is terrible, they're making us go back, they're getting rid of paper bags. I never used paper bags. You're not thinking past a certain year. It used to be weird that you would have a plastic bag. It was only paper bags that you would use. Nobody would think to put something in the environment that would cause the environment, when you put plastic in the environment, they're not biodegradable. And when they get out there, that means the stuff that's growing, they're growing with all this stuff in it too. That can be cancerous to the plants themselves. And cancerous to what you get from the plants now in your body when you eat them. Cancerous to the fish. So now cancerous to you when you eat them. And what happens is this fake plastic or this fake estrogen, your body responds to it, and so it starts saying, because it's getting extra estrogen outside of what's supposed to get naturally, it starts doing weird things with cells, and usually it leads to cells doubling at rates that they're not supposed to, right? Myostasis, that's what your body's doing all the time, cells doubling into other cells. So now it starts doubling and doubling and doubling, and these cells that shouldn't be doubling, they're doubling at a rate to where now you get these cells that don't belong in your body. They're not natural, right? And that's what's going on a lot of times. It's not the only way cancer can be a whole bunch of different things, right? But basically, that's one big thing that causes cells to be cancerous, is that you have cells that shouldn't be doubling that are doubling now because you got something that's fake inside, and the body doesn't know how to address it. Or like when people drink fake sugar, right? If you're somebody who's doing a sweetener, a lot of people, I've seen this a lot of times. When I used to work in fast food and stuff, you have people that come up and they be like, "Can I get a they want a diet lemonade, or they want a diet tea, or they want diet coffee, whatever, and then they want a bunch of sweeteners. They want 10, 12, 15 sweeteners because the sweetener doesn't taste as sweet as the regular, but they've been taught that you can have as much sweetener as you want, but it's fake sugar, right? Or even people who do diet sodas and you're doing an aspartame, fake sugar. If it says no sugar, but then it's still supposed to be sweet, then understand 99% of the time, that means they're giving you something that your body doesn't need. And when you have that, what happens, so like a lot of women who are trying to lose weight, you think, I'll drink a diet soda because you think the word diet means lose weight. Once again, doctrine, interpretation of doctrine. Diet just means what you're eating. Diet does not mean lose weight. So you can't sue Diet Coke if you're drinking Coke and don't realize that Diet Coke actually causes you to gain weight, right? Soda is actually worse for women than it is for men, but especially diet soda. It causes you to gain weight. Because what happens is you have this fake sugar. So when you have the fake sugar, this is what happens. Your body says, oh, okay, here's this fake sugar. But, your mind says this is fake sugar, right? So your mind says, okay, I taste it. It tastes like something like sugar. It chemically does something in my brain. It says it's sugar. Now, what would happen normally is you'd have the sugar, if it was especially cane sugar, not white sugar, but, if you can have cane sugar, real sugar, but you have this sugar, and it goes into your body, and you have certain organisms in your body that go and they just basically take the sugar, they store it, or they put it through waste or whatever because they recognize it. What happens with a lot of people is they drink the fake sugar or eat the fake sugar. It gets down to the body. So the brain says, okay, cool, it's a sugar, whatever, we'll treat it like sugar. Something chemically goes on that reminds me of sugar, we'll treat it like sugar. The body sends the sugar to the places to where these organisms are supposed to take the sugar and put them in the right place. And what happens is the organisms don't recognize. The organisms go, I'm not going to take this. Like, why did it sends a signal to the brain? Like, why did you tell me this is sugar? This is not sugar. The brain is like, no, this is sugar. I ate it because it's sugar. The organism are like, yo, I'm trained in sugar. Like, there's a conversation. Your body talks. So that's the conversation. Your organism is like, yo, time out. I know you saying that you're the brain, you in charge. I'm telling you, I'm trained in sugar. If I take this, I'm going to hurt the body. So I'm not going to take it. I'm going to leave it there because I don't know what to do with this. And so what happens is your body just has a whole bunch of this stuff that just sits there for a long time because it doesn't get taken, it doesn't get digested. The body recognizes it as poisonous, but they designed it in such a way that your brain is tricked into saying, hey, I'll let it come down. You know, it's poison to your body. Your body doesn't accept it. So now you keep drinking these diet sodas. You're going to the gym. You're like, why am I not losing weight? I mean, I feel a little better. I feel like my lungs are better. I got my cardio and everything up, but I still got this, we always be like, I still got this little section here. Well, you got the section. It might be because you haven't diet sugar. He says swerve is a sugar substitute. Our bodies can't digest it. Yeah. He says soy got estrogen. That's okay. Isn't the United States of America a corporation? I lost your comment. Hold on. Isn't it a United corporation different from the United States? So the United States of America is basically saying that you're protected under the 50 countries that come together, the United States of America, and that you're dealing with as a private citizen. The United States Corporation is dealing with the public and being under the government. And therefore, you're a different type of citizen. Matter of fact, you're not a real person, and you're under a fake corporation. Remember, a corporation is considered a person. So if you're not a real person under another not real person, which is the corporation, then that corporation is a slave master of the person, and you as the person who are underneath them, you are in fact the slave. You said caloric surplus plus weight gain, caloric deficit causes weight loss. Yeah, but calories can also be something that you need too. It depends on what your lifestyle is as well. But you're definitely right on that. Minister Tamer said the wickedness is so prevalent we think natural food from earth is bad and that man-made chemicals are great. Very much so. I saw it. I'm sure you know the difference, but I didn't catch the rest of it. Thank you, Sister Kathy. Appreciate that. Yep, and as a man thinketh, so are they. And a lot of times you think because of what you eat. It's holistic, right? Remember, it's holy. Put a W before that H. If you eating something and it causes your brain to do certain things, and your pineal gland, where people say that soul sits, is attached to your mind, your spirit, you're going to have some issues that go on. So xenoestrogen from BPA stays in the body, whereas plant-based doesn't. Most definitely. Most definitely. You said, isn't there a difference between U.S. citizen and American? I do thank you for your time. Yeah. So once again, so a U.S. citizen, United States citizen, if you look at the United States, period, if you want to just know, is the United States a corporation, just look up 3002 15 Alpha, 15A, 15 Olive. Look it up. And when you look it up, you'll discover that it says clearly United States is a corporation. If you want to know where that corporation's main headquarters is, you can actually look that up as well. It'll tell you that the corporation's headquarters is in Washington, D.C. Now, when you start saying that, people start trying to tell you that you're lying and this and that. But here's one of the most simple ways to just make sure that you have this concept in your mind. Right? And those of you who are on the podcast, by the way, looks like we're about to run out of time. We're only allowed to be on 2 hours as far as being on live, so we thank you for being on. If you'd like to come on TikTok or watch the rest of this later on YouTube, feel free to. And we thank you. We appreciate you for being on. So, there's but when you're talking about the United States corporation in the United States of America, just think of it like this. This is how simple it is to even just notice there's got to be a difference, right? When you talk about the United States of America, there are 49. Technically, at one point, there were, there weren't any states at one point, but, at a certain point in history, 1940s, I guess, there were 48 states. Then there became a 49th state, right? I believe Alaska came first. Was it Alaska came first and then Hawaii, I believe? So you had 49 states, right? And then Hawaii, which was under another jurisdiction, they got tricked into some stuff through the Dole Company, right? And then the Dole Company that still owns a bunch of land there as part of the process. The Dole Company was helped by America to trick Hawaii out of the land and to basically take over. Then Dole, basically sold Hawaii to America. the United States of America. So, and then they changed the maritime law because Hawaii is not in America, right? America is not just 50 countries or 50 states. America is North America and South America. So anything that's a state or a country considered to be a country, then there were only 49 of them, right? But they changed the maritime law. They changed the jurisdiction to where they said, okay, now Hawaii is part of of North America and South America, right? There's other islands around Hawaii too that are considered to be territorial lands, but not necessarily the United States of America. There's only one island over there which nobody lives on, at least so they say. That probably means indigenous people live there, a small group of them. Nevertheless, so they said that there's one island over there that's under the law of the United States of America outside of the Hawaiian Islands that are all supposed to be part of one state. But if you look at as far as, once again, corporation, United States versus United States of America, it's just very easy to see that, okay, there's 50 states or 50 countries that are supposed to be part of the United States, 50 countries that are in North America, South America, all of which are in North America, right? But that's what America is, right? Remember, the original word of America, even in the Black's Law Dictionary, American originally just meant a copper-colored person indigenous to America. That whole Boston Tea Party thing, that was a ceremony they did to say that we killed off these people, we took their scalps, we took their headdresses, we took their outfits. Now we're going to put on blackface, and we're going to put on their outfits and stuff that we stole off of the killed bodies, and we're going to say, now we're the Americans, and we're going to fight as Americans. But you're not Americans. Americans are the people you killed off, right? It's doctrine, but we don't know how to interpret the doctrine, right? That's what happened. So now, after that, right, you have these, so now after these Americans have been killed, or whatever, and they're saying they're the Americans. Now that's how you have these people who say we're going to come together, and then they become the colonies of America, and then they become the United States, the 13 countries of America, because they weren't all connected. But they became the 13 United States of America, and then it spreads out and spreads out. Now you've got 50 of these places. Now outside of that, you have territories as well. So the territories are under what? Are they under the United States of America, or are they under the United States? Right? You see that? Like, so the United States of America, these American people lived in Turtle Island and also lived in, North America, South America. Those were Americans. So you're saying now you have more of a right to the land than those Americans. But you can't get rid of them too, because you have to have treaties with those people. If you get rid of them, then you don't have any claim to the land. So even though you say you're an American, technically you live off of the back of Americans. The second that you get rid of the Americans is the second that you got to call this thing something else, or you have to, say you don't have a right to it anymore because you conquered. But you have to understand it's a kingdom. People don't think of this as a kingdom. You got to understand that's why, like, when you have a commonwealth like Virginia is a commonwealth is still under England. Right? And America still gives tithes to England. Don't get it twisted. Right? Like, they're still giving offerings and things to England. So you have to be honest about that conversation. People don't want to have an honest conversation, but once again, how can you have an honest conversation if you don't understand the difference between the doctrine? Yeah, thank you. 28 USC 300215A. Minister Tamara put it in there, right? Yeah, so Puerto Rico, some people want to become a state. A lot of them don't want to become a state, right? But they're a territory. They're a territory, so they're under the United States law, not in the law of the United States of America. So they're under the United States law. They're still in the states, or they're still not. Excuse me, they're still in the America, but they're not a state. So they're not under the United States of America. They're under the United States. Philippines is not under the United States of America. They're under the United States. Matter of fact, look at your passport. Right? Once again, we talked about law, how this has to go across the board. Look at your passport. If you didn't make sure that you signed your passport the correct way, which probably everybody on here didn't, on your passport, it will say United States of America. So you'll think, oh, okay, cool. But then look right next to it. It says that passport is the property of the United States, which means that you, who the passport represents, it identifies you, and you have signed off on the passport to say, hey, I identify as somebody owned by the corporation. right? Like, it goes across the board. That's why I said, like, a lot of people are going to speak on this stuff, and they don't want to have honest, genuine conversation about this. We want to speak on these things and not talk about the reality of this. Yeah, Guam is another one. You know, you got several different places. And then, of course, you have the faux. You have the faux corporations where, you know, there's books written on this where America, the CIA, goes from country to country to country, and they have banks that they tell these countries that they have to take loans from. The countries say, we're not going to take a loan from you. They kill off the leader. They get the next leader up. They say, are you going to take a loan? And then somebody agrees, right? But they have people that go around to different countries and stuff. They have banks that you don't even know the name of. The countries don't even know the name of. They just say, hey, you're going to put a loan in, and you're going to give it to us. And there are people who've written books on doing this, being part of this experience. So they're still making money off of it, even when retired, because they told people the truth and people don't believe them. But we know for a fact there are people that are hired to go to different countries, talk to government officials, and say, you're going to give this much money to America. You're going to give this much money to the Federal Reserve. You're going to give this much money to Europe. You're going to give this much, whatever European nation you want to put on there. You're going to give money to these. And if you don't, we're going to kill you off. And the people say, no, we're not going to do it like that. And then they kill off whoever it is, and the next person comes up and they say, yeah, I'll do it because I don't want to get killed. I don't want my family to get messed up. So it's a corporation going around. So once again, we think of it as only being United States, this, that, whatever. I'm sorry, babe. I saw a part of your text. I can't go away from this or else I might not be able to upload it. I saw the point up to you were saying about wetbacks or something on the back of the Spanish card. And once again, I give honor to my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. Thankful and grateful for her. You want to own a bank? Yeah, it's actually not that hard. It's actually not that difficult. You can actually buy banks. Did you know that there's banks that like people sell in places in different parts of the world, and you can just basically buy the rights to it or whatever, and it's yours. Oh, okay. I'm gonna see if is there any way you can email it to me and then I can look at it? Because that way I can look at it without a. Oh, okay. If you can email it to me, I can pull it up through there. Thank you. Yeah, because that way I can. Because I want to try and make sure we can upload these on the YouTube if we go away too long. It depends. Sometimes I can go away for a minute and come back and it'll still let me upload it to YouTube. Sometimes if I leave TikTok too long, it won't let me upload it all. But I can look at it through Gmail on here, on this other device. You said, so pretty much America forces everyone to play by their rules. Well, yeah, but once again, it's bigger than even just America. You got to understand America's under rulership. You know, look up the definition of capitalism. Capitalism is a system in which politics and economics is used to control trade and industry, and that trade and industry is wielded by private corporations, not the state, which means that the state, doesn't have the power that we think it does. That's why you got to, we have to get out of this thing of thinking the president's going to stop anything. The president works for the people who have power. That's the way that works. The president works for the people that have the power. I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at this card on here. Okay, I'm having issues with my signal. I don't know why. Why am I having issues with my signal? I don't know. But hopefully it'll show up anyway. But in a second. But this is stuff that we're just not being taught. We just don't know. Oh. Okay. Babe, I don't think I'm understanding what you're saying. Spanish basic words. Have the duck. I'm sorry, guys. Well, I have the same flashcards for English, but they have a Fox. Oh, okay. I get what you're saying. Okay, I'm sorry. So one has a duck on it, one has a fox on it. When it comes to America, the American cards, cards that they have to teach you English words, it has a fox on it. The other one has a duck on it. Okay, I get it. Okay, I get it. Yeah, it's in everything. It's all over the place. I don't even fully know if I get it. I get enough of it. Let me see. It's good to hear a Aboriginal brother speaking on knowledge with respect to your queen. Amen. Thank you. Got to. My wife is I, and she is, and I am her. We're one. It doesn't work without each other, But I really don't have much left to offer as far as the subject matter for today. I'm gonna get ready to take my leave. However, we got a little bit of time left before it's time to start looking at getting on the road. Did anybody have any questions, comments, concerns regarding what we talked about, or anything having to do with this series? Haven't been led as we believe. Hopefully you guys have gotten comprehension of what doctrine means. We showed you what doctrine meant. Once again, doctrine is not talking about your religious belief. When we use that term religion, right? Doctrine is talking about any belief that you uphold and that you teach for anybody, any organization. That's what doctrine is. And when we get into the Black's Law Dictionary, the legal terminology, to get better comprehension of it, when you're talking about doctrine, you're talking about doctrine as far as the precepts, the commands, the statutes, all these things we've been talking about. And it tells us to see interpretation, because you can't have proper doctrine. You can't use doctrine legally if you don't have proper interpretation. And what is interpretation? Interpretation is the art or process in which you make sure that you comprehend what the author meant when he originally said it or she originally said it. And if you're not coming from that, then it's considered to be insignificant. And a lot of people are out here with insignificant interpretation. Yeah, well, matter of fact, one of the I've been talking with some minister nights. My wife and I have been talking about it for a while. Property that we have, we want to make sure that we put a Moroccan flag in front of that, because we know that when police officers see it, I'm not telling you what I think. I'm telling you what I know. Right? There's proof. There's video evidence. There's written evidence out there. If a police officer sees a Moroccan flag, usually they're gonna leave you alone, and that goes into some secret society type stuff, right? And those of you who've taken the sovereignty class with us, I believe we showed you the sovereignty class. We showed you that video of somebody just simply having a Moroccan flag and having some paperwork to show that they are a non-citizen national because they're a Moor. As soon as they pulled that out, had like 8, 9, 10, 11, I don't know how many police cars it was, and a bunch of officers, and the person was cussing them out and didn't get out of his truck or whatever and told him you weren't going to do anything. And the guy was trying to get him to speak, and the guy kept basically telling the police officer to shut the F up. Right? Like, because you don't have any authority over me. I'm not signed up for your stuff. I don't live off of your benefits or privileges. I have my own, right? So, that's doctrinal. People keep saying, man, we can't, how are we going to get out the system? You got to fight. You got to look. I'm not saying at some point you don't need to be able to defend yourself. That should be part of your goal. That's nation building, right? However, don't forget that there's stuff that's already set up that if you know how to speak and interpret the law, if you know how to interpret the doctrine, then you don't have to worry about those things. But yeah, that flag is something that I'd say is essential. Especially if you're talking about non-citizen national. If you're black, probably on paper, somebody wanted to challenge you, you might want to try and, when becoming a non-citizen national, you might want to try and become a Moor to make it make even more sense for you legally. Nevertheless, it's a great thing to have. Jan said, where do we start to own ourselves back? I know we have to educate ourselves, but some of us don't know how. Well, we're on, first of all, if I can just, what's that old saying, not to toot your own horn or something, but I mean, real talk, I believe in what we're doing, what we're saying. We're on every Rising, 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern, kind of until, I mean, usually until about 11, a little somewhere around 10:30 to 11 a.m. Eastern New York time. So we give you information like this every day, about 3 hours per. We have it on YouTube. We talk to people. We do life coaching. We do marital coaching. We help people through. We don't necessarily give legal advice per se, right? I have to say that out loud. I'm not giving legal advice, but I will tell you that I can show you how certain things as far as law works to help you to be able to seek, further advice, whether that's within yourself or within your studies or going to somebody who's a lawyer or a judge or whatever. But we work towards doing things like that so it can start here. It starts with, when you talk about knowing yourself, there's a lot of information that's out there, authors like Dr. The same authors that we give, obviously I do a lot of stuff that's Afrocentric, that's kingdom-centric, that's Israel-centric, right? That's, indigenous-centric, I don't know, whatever term we would use for that. However, that some of the same authors we talk about, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, Dr. Amos Wilson, Dr. Cloud Anderson, and I'm not just one or two books. I'm talking about you can read anything that these authors talk about. Look at any videos these authors are on. These are people that will tell you the truth. Heck, Jane Elliott, Dr. Tim Wise. I don't know if it's doctor. I think it's Dr. Tim Wise. Those are people that don't look like us, but they have a lot of great stuff to say. And not everybody's going to agree. It's not about the agreement. It's about at least getting the information. That's what intel or intelligence is information. So, look for people who are culturally giving you information from a different prism. Clever Apps is how we're able to access/purchase old classes. So access to old classes is kind of jacked up right now. My stuff gets taken down a lot off of social media, and YouTube, I had something that had been going on for years. They basically erased everything. We had reached tens of millions of people through that one. They basically erased that because the World Health Organization said that I was lying about COVID, but the video that they used to say I was lying about COVID was actually just talking about how to read fruits and vegetables on labels. So we had like all of our old classes basically recorded through there. So we have a little bit of our classes recorded where we can give you like unlisted stuff, but we don't have it all together yet. So as I'm teaching these classes, I really don't have the time, right now to just do nothing but these classes. I'm still trying to finish up, or not finish up, still trying to post. Like, it takes a long time just to post a lot of this stuff, like the book stuff. We have the album, but the album's not necessarily set up yet to where you can buy it yet. Apparently I had to do something legally first to make sure that happened where we can own everything. And, we got the copyright and all that, but we're not worried, to make sure that all the stuff is there, to take extra precautions so people can't use the stuff. But so we have a lot of stuff that was already up. And once they took a lot of stuff down, we kind of been in scrambling mode, trying to get stuff back up there for you all. I mean, we were in the midst of, when they took us down, we were in the midst of, I think we were on part 80 something of a lineage series, talking about where do we come from. Like, literally, we have had 80 something things on where do we come from, where do our beliefs come from. This is kind of a some of this stuff is kind of us doubling over into that in this series, Haven't Been Led As We Believe. So I don't have everything on there. I have some things if you'd like to look at some of the old classes, sure. And I can probably fill in information if you want to do that. And if you're interested in that, you can look up, you can look up some of the stuff right here and get in contact with us. I'm going to put some stuff up now. So if you're interested in that, we can probably work something out. You just have to give me a little bit of time, because I'm going to have to see what exactly is loaded, what still needs to be uploaded, and maybe some of the stuff I have to cut bait with and try to, just do some one-on-one stuff possibly with you, and since it'll be one-on-one, it usually can go a little faster because it's just one person. So we can, as dedicated as you are, I can be dedicated to that. We can, do maybe 3-4 weeks or something like that of doing that and get you, caught up on some things. But, this is stuff you can go to. The YouTube channel is #FindKofi, #FindKofi. You can go to Kofi-Ofori.com. That's KOFI-OFORI.com. You can text us at 410-714-5078. There's also a 202 number you can text us at as well. If you're getting links from us, by the way, it will be coming through a 202 number. So just be ready for that. We can talk about donations and all that stuff offline. Basically, long story short, for the classes, for 2-month classes, we ask for $90 donation minimum. So if you're, able to do that, we thank you for that, and it'll help us to do things, whether it's land or food or clothing. People, sometimes, if I be honest, even sometimes, if we need to do stuff as far as traveling to meet somebody, taking extra time out, whatever, we're setting up the Patreon stuff, trying to do about 5 minutes a day of stuff that's just Patreon only as well. So that's the way you can do that. That's $5 a month if you're willing to donate, something like that. So you can feel free to check out those things, and also your comments and stuff to go through the Patreon stuff that will, you guys can kind of also have more of a voice as far as leading us to maybe what we talk about in the future or things like that. We also have stuff like our early rise of Bible study every Monday. And once again, the classes that are going to start, we're starting those classes the week of January 31st. There's going to be Hebrew characters, basic Hebrew, sovereignty 1, sovereignty 2, natural medicine 2, basic French, cryptocurrency. But there's different ways you can get in touch with that. You can DM us. If you're looking for us on YouTube, you can just put something in the comment section, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, it might be easier, if you want, because January 31st isn't that far away. It might be easiest just to go ahead and take up new classes for you. Because the other one's going to be centered around my time, and my time, and is not necessarily as available as I'd like it to be. I wish I could just pick up and be like, hey, we can give everything. But we do have recordings. My wife's been telling me for a while to set aside some time. I don't know when or how, but at some point, I guess I can set aside some time, maybe for a couple weeks. Might have to just do it like maybe after we do these classes coming up. Might have to just set up some time where I don't do lives in the evening for a while, and I just do nothing but set up some classes, and we can even put them on certain things like Udemy, or we can have other things where people can go and you can actually go and just check out our classes and be part of them or whatever there. So if you want to just get recordings, maybe we can set up a bunch of recordings on different platforms that you can go get them. But we don't have it set up right now because of all the stuff that just happened with YouTube, unfortunately. But thank you for asking the question. That being said, though, I'm going to go ahead and get out of your guys' way. I'm going to go ahead and take my leave, rather. Thank you for being on again. Our prayers that you not just have heard this word, but you be doers of it as well. We look forward to being able to talk to you guys very soon. There will be no live this evening. I apologize for last evening. Yesterday evening, I was telling you guys the possibility yesterday evening I wouldn't be on live just because of trying to rest to get ready to travel and things like that. So we don't have any... there won't be any live this evening as well, at least for me. I'm not sure if my wife will be on at 7, but there won't be any lives on. Those who were scheduled to talk to today, everything's still on track. So I look forward to talking to you guys. I think I got a 4:30, a 6 o'clock, and a 8 o'clock, I believe, with you guys today. So we'll try to make those happen. And everything else is going well. Once again, if you guys are interested, there is a family who needs some help. There's a brother of ours who asked for some help, and I was able to give him a little bit or whatever to help out. He is in a situation right now where, because of some stuff that's happening with COVID, he wasn't able to work, and just needed some stuff to make sure, at least for a little bit, his children could eat. So we making sure that we're helped him out a little bit. If you guys are willing to give towards anything that could help him, you can look for the information, the link tree, Cash App information. Cash App information is also in the bio as well. And just, be willing to be a blessing if you can be. Any little bit helps, and doing it for the babies or whatever. And if you do give, just make sure whenever and wherever you give that you give, and you say in the comment section or in the whatever section that comes on different apps, or you text us if you do it through Zelle or something like that. Let us know exactly what it's going to be you want it to be used for, so we can make sure it's used specifically for that. And we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Don't forget, we're transitioning now from our year of pursuit to living inside of that which we pursued. This is part 23 of our series, Haven't Been Led as We Believe. And we want to give a reminder out that we're not here to tell you that you're evil, this and that, or whatever. We're trying to give you proper doctrine, as we talked about today. All right. So we're thankful. We're grateful. We honor the King and Queen in each and every one of you. Once again, please check out my wife and what she's doing at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, but the letter N. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, and her website. The tincture for this month is I Am Immune. So Please, talk to her about certain things, health issues, things like that. She has a ton of tinctures, a bunch of different tinctures, but that's a different way that you can be helped and blessed. And for more information, get in contact with her or get in contact with me. Let me know you're trying to get in contact with her. I'll make sure that she's able to get in contact with you. But we appreciate you. We thank you so much. I don't have anything else to say. So as always, this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, by being a voice to the voiceless and speaking the unspoken, until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Peace.